I got your mom away from the man guarding her, Vanessa Minos said, rapidly blinking. Each time she opened her eyes, the view changed, peering through grates, peeking from behind a box, perched on top of a stack of crates, moving at floor level. She tracked the journey of Aaron's mother through the Tea Party base. If Aaron's mom went the wrong way, a mouth familiar was there, snapping its powerful jaws and scaring her back to the right track. If someone were en route to intercept her, they'd meet the mouth familiars along the way. Vanessa coordinated her familiars to protect and drive the white-haired woman to the right door. Then she switched to the view of the eye familiar, watching the guard her mouth familiar attacked. The man squirmed on the floor, hitting the giant almond-looking creature latched on his leg like a leech with the butt of his gun. Blood everywhere. The eye familiar couldn't hear sounds, but it could see the man's mouth wide open, shouting in pain. Only bite. Don't swallow. Vanessa firmly repeated the orders to her mouth familiar. The metallic taste of blood overcame the disgusting saltiness of the fabric, masking the bland flesh. She struggled not to vomit, focusing on reining in the ferocity of the mouth familiar. After Aaron's mom had run some distance away, Vanessa ordered it to return to her. Everything clear so far, Vanessa said. She closed her own eyes, reorienting herself, before looking at Aaron standing beside her. Aaron didn't seem too concerned for her mother's safety, though it was hard to gauge from her metal dummy face. Your distraction must be working, Vanessa said in a louder voice, hoping to get a response. It's something they can't ignore, Aaron replied. Vanessa switched to her eye familiar, shadowing the man Aaron had taken over. A puppet, Aaron had called it. Bigger than Slinky, skin red from bursting veins, torn open in place due to bloated muscles growing out of control. The man looked more of an Adumbry than most of Adumbry at Red Island. The muscle monster demolished a storage room with canisters holding the experimental parasites. Guards came from all directions, trying to kill Aaron's puppet to no avail. The beast leaped at the men, squishing them like dough. Many parasites escaped the broken canisters. Some attacked the incoming reinforcements, most slithered off to cause havoc elsewhere. How many abilities does Aaron have? Vanessa wondered. This reinforced the fear and respect in her mind for a true Adumbry. There was the giant werewolf that attacked Eve, and now this metal body that could control people. Vanessa spared a glance at Aaron before returning to following her mother. Aaron's form reminded Vanessa of her godfather, Rob. The alias Vanessa jokingly gave him, the name of her favorite cartoon character. He could absorb any material and turn it into armor. He protected them when they escaped from the tunnels underneath Eve, chased by big combat drones, absorbing metal as their shield. Ultimately, he couldn't last against the Skitter's heavy weaponry. If only he were as durable as Aaron's metal form. Vanessa saw Aaron fight Redhead, an enforcer of the Tea Party. Redhead tore Aaron apart, but she put herself together as if nothing had happened. Her pieces didn't have any scratches from the claws and fangs of the humanoid lion Adumbry. Can Redhead scratch diamonds? Vanessa's thoughts returned to that fateful night, zeroing in on the moment she threw the diamond bracelet to Aaron to pass to Rob. Vanessa was cycling through her eye familiars, but that scene was the only thing she could see. Aaron gave something else to Rob, not the diamond bracelet. Rob made his armor out of a different material and was killed by the endless stream of bullets from the Skitters. That was why Aaron played dumb about the diamond bracelet. She was avoiding the topic of Rob's death of killing Rob. Aaron didn't know that Vanessa was thankful it happened that way. If Rob caught the diamond bracelet and made an armor of diamonds from it, he'd still die, and Vanessa would be tormented with guilt. She had tested shooting a diamond ring her mother gave her with a gun. It simply shattered. Thank you, Aaron. One less thing to feel guilty about. Vanessa had more than enough that she might break apart if Rob's death was on her too. The Skitters tracking her eye familiars in the tunnels, leading the combat drones to their group. Telling Stella about Aaron's identity. Is there something on my face? Aaron asked. Vanessa didn't realize she was unconsciously staring. no. I was going to say your mom is only a couple more corridors away. No guards in sight. They couldn't use the door of the holding cells of the hostages because it was a sliding door that opened with a keypad. Legba's power only worked with a doorknob or a latch, something a person could hold and operate to open the door. Same reason why Erin was teleported far from the room where Vanessa met her. Only the doors in the older section of the Tea Party's base had door knobs, most were touchpad operated or locked. Good. Erin nodded. The sooner my mother escapes, the sooner we can transport my real body here. He can make only one portal something at a time, right? She nudged her head at a tiny old man, not much bigger than a fifth grader, sitting cross-legged on a wide pushcart in the middle of the room. Yes, I think so. Vanessa hesitantly glanced at Legba. The old man didn't move, his eyes hidden behind the hood of his cloak. On his lap was a large handbell with an aged wooden handle. All this time, Legba hadn't said anything to Vanessa, much less nod or make any other gesture of communication. She hadn't seen him talk to anyone else, just following the woman named Euphonia, an eccentric adumbry with 4 large robotic arms attached to her back. Follow might be the wrong term. Euphonia carried Legba with her mechanical arms. If Vanessa hadn't seen the old man shake the bell, she'd have thought he was a garden gnome. When Vanessa first talked to Legba, offering to bribe him to teleport Erin to a different door, he waved his bell once as an answer. Vanessa gambled that meant yes. The other half of her considered killing the old man to cover her betrayal if it turned out that he wasn't on board. Fortunately, Legba transported Erin to the correct door. Several minutes ago, Vanessa sort of kidnapped Legba from the control room, killing the Tea Party guards there and putting Legba on the cart to transfer him into a room several doors down the parasite storage area. Erin had to be near it to command her puppet to create a diversion to save her mother. Legba waved his bell once after Vanessa explained the plan, so she assumed everything would be fine. How am I supposed to pay him later? Vanessa blinked again. Erin, your mom is nearing the door. We'll transport her to a building near the Greaves Center where the Tea Party gathered before the attack. Vanessa picked that spot because Legba wasn't answering when asked if he could connect to any other location in Las Vegas. That was the only place, besides the convention center, where Legba teleported the Tea Party. Vanessa didn't know if he had portals in other areas. Don't worry, she told Erin. It's safe there. No one. It's fine, Erin nonchalantly said. Just get Mom out of here so we can move on to my real body. I'll try to get an eye familiar at the convention center over to that place to watch her. Is she out already? My puppet won't last long. Several augmented men and, I think, an adumbry showed up. Not yet. She's running to the door now. Vanessa turned to Legba. Can you, do as we planned? From the long and baggy sleeves of Legba's cloak emerged his frail hand, his bony fingers were unnaturally long like tree branches. When he grabbed the bell's handle, it began to glow bright gold. He swung it once, beautiful ringing started, the sound coming from all directions. Vanessa might be imagining it, but the sound was like waves washing over her. Thank you, Vanessa said, unsure what else to say. She bowed to him as an afterthought. It probably wasn't all that respectful to put him on a pushcart. Yep, still there with your friends, Vanessa said, blinking to check it. They're safe for now. They've destroyed Finley's ceramic soldiers, though more should be coming soon. I think they're trying to find a tunnel to get out. How's the rest of the building? It's a battlefield between the police, bid agents, and the mutants the last I saw. I don't have eye familiars left to watch. She's through. Your mom's through the door. Okay then, Erin said. I'm not good with directions. Up 2 floors, then the men's restroom near the emergency stairs. We'll see each other again soon. Vanessa intently stared at Erin's single eye. Erin placed her fingers beneath her chin, along her jawline. Vanessa, sorry for what I did to you. And, yeah, see you later. Don't apologize for, before Vanessa could finish her sentence, Erend disappeared. They had shaken off the clay bastards. Some breathing space. Imani Nanda didn't know where they were, but it seemed to be some mechanical room. Maybe. There were large machines. Could be generators. And there were lots of pipes. They went down here, hoping there was a large enough pipe for them to pass, maybe something connected to the sewer system. She stared at her hand. Her palm was covered in blood, not hers. She had plenty of bruises from brawling with the clay men, but she was sure this blood wasn't hers. She felt it with her fingers to make sure it was real. Rough. It had already dried. But it was real. No way, Imani whispered, turning to examine Erend's face. Imani had propped Erend in a sitting position against the wall while they, including the other people they rescued, waited for Jubjub's return, scouting for a way out. Erend's eyes were still shut tight. No air flowed in or out of her nose, and her chest wasn't moving. Imani had assumed Erend was dead and thought of leaving her body, maybe hiding it in a cabinet to retrieve later for a proper burial. But she didn't. Imani touched Erend's skin. Warm. They'd been running for so long that Erend should have gone cold if she was really dead. Imani felt for Erend's pulse on her wrist. There was nothing. Next, Imani raised Erend's arm and slightly shook it. It was limp. Rigor mortis didn't set in. Erend seemed dead, but she wasn't. Lastly, Imani turned Erend to the side to look at her back. A patch of dried blood stained the lower part of Erend's shirt. Imani clenched her teeth, remembering her stupidity. She was carrying Erend on her back as she ran away from the Tea Party men. Could be human, could be those clay puppets shooting at them when a bullet managed to hit Erend. Imani lifted Erend's shirt. She had checked the wound earlier but wasn't sure, or rather couldn't believe, what she saw. She couldn't take a closer look because the Adumbri was chasing them. She scratched away the dried blood to reveal smooth, pale skin. No hole, no scars, no hint of any wound. It wasn't a hallucination when she saw the bullet getting pushed out of Erend's injury before it healed. When Snark stole Erend's phone to set up a situation for Imani to step in and save the day, Erend could keep up with Snark's running speed despite his legogs. Snark also mentioned that he nearly got the wind knocked out of him when Erend punched his stomach. Imani assumed Erend was augmented. Reasonable to think, given that Erend's mother worked for Greaves. Imani missed the mark on that one. Erend has an artificial core. Jubjub told them that only Amber Dean had an artificial core in her. Erend was supposed to be a normal human. Either Jubjub purposely lied to them, or she didn't know, maybe the latter case, as Jubjub had suggested leaving Erend behind too. Was Erend an even bigger secret than Dean's power? Was this why the Adumbri wanted Erend? He called himself Finley, an Adumbri with the power to create clay puppets masquerading as humans. Those clay puppets also led the black goo monsters to them. He told them to surrender Erend, and he'd let them escape. Of course, they didn't believe him. He wasn't that powerful of an Adumbri, but Jubjub couldn't kill him because he could transfer between his creations. Is Erend okay? Tesh limped up to her. Imani allowed herself a smile seeing Tesh's ridiculous look. The sleeves of his dress shirt were torn off, one arm sleeve was used to wrap his wounded leg. I shouldn't smile here. Wearing a straight face, she said, yes, she's fine. Just a small wound. It's not bleeding anymore. That's good. Tesh looked around the room. Kira was tending to an old man with a wounded arm. Tesh's other sleeve went to that wound. They had picked up several more people during their escape and lost a few when Finley attacked. Everyone's fine so far. Still alive. Yeah, still alive. Erend included, probably. You think we can trust her? Tesh asked. The shadow woman. Yes, we can, Imani said. I can feel it. When she reunited with Jubjub, the latter decided it was best that they pretended not to know each other. It's not like we have a choice. You're right, Tesh said. She saved our asses many times. We'd be dead without her. He looked at Erend. Imani could guess what was on his mind. A few of their group wanted to give up Erend to Finley. Tesh opened his mouth but was interrupted by the rattling in the vents overhead. The others also jolted in surprise. And fear. A few tried to hide behind the large machines. Don't worry. Imani called out. I can see the shadows. Jubjub's back. Dark liquid, not unlike the black goo from the parasites, just not smelly, gushed through the metal slats in the ceiling. It formed into a large puddle that congealed into a blob. Then that blob took on the form of Jubjub, dressed in all black, with dark straight hair covering half her face. Bad news, and badder news, Jubjub said. What is it? Kira asked, stepping forward. Those clay men are back with a few monsters in tow. Few, but huge ones. Large enough to break the door. Imani already knew the answer from Jubjub's face. Jubjub nodded. The others gasped and exchanged worried looks. Imani scanned the frightened people before asking, is that the worst news? No. The sewers are a no-go, Jubjub said. There's no way for us out of here. We have to barricade. You can get out of here, shouted a man wearing overalls with a Greaves logo on his chest. We're the ones who can't get out. You lead us to a trap. Hey, shut up, Tesh growled. She saved you back there. Barricade the doors, Jubjub said. I'll try to delay them. She liquefied into a dark sludge, zooming across the floor to a part of the room covered in shadows. She might even be an Adumbri, said another person. Yeah, definitely a trap. The black goo. So obvious. We shouldn't have trusted her. Go out if you don't want to be with us, said Tesh. Everyone else who prefers living, grab something to. And who made you the leader? Another shouting match erupted, reminiscent of when they were held in the conference room several floors up. Why couldn't people just get along? It seemed so obvious that everyone should work together for the best chances of survival. But scared people do stupid things, hoping to save themselves at the expense of others. Imani couldn't blame them because she was also afraid as usual, as expected. What made the feeling worse was knowing that Jubjub could escape the place on her own while leaving the rest of them to die, just like the guy in overalls said. If only Boojum and Snark were here. Where did they go? As morbid as it sounded, life and death situations were made better if suffered as a group. Imani could draw from Boojum's confidence in the face of danger or Snark's sense of humor even when staring at death. Fear crept into Imani's mind. What if Jubjub was on her way out of the building? Imani looked at Aaron's body. Somebody shouted what she was thinking. Let's just give the Adumbri that girl. No one's giving anyone to an Adumbri. Kira rushed to Aaron's side, shielding her. Tesh took his place in front of his wife, fists raised. Imani shook her head. What the hell was I thinking? She wasn't this weak. She stood beside Tesh. How dare you offer up someone to an Adumbri? Have you no shame? The last line was also meant for herself. We're all going to die if the tentacle creatures get in here, a woman wearing corporate attire cried out. Just give up that girl, someone piled on. One life for ours. The others were closing in. Imani was confident she could fight them off, but she'd rather they prepare to defend this room. You idiots! Tesh shouted. The monsters are coming, and you want to do this? We want to live. Give up the girl. Ah, so noisy, it was only a small voice, but everyone quieted down. Erend was awake. Can't get some sleep around here. Too noisy. I'm going out. Stop fighting. I held my hands up, standing between two factions. Stop. Imani, Tesh, and Kira were on my right. The couple pleaded with me to stay. Imani silently lurked behind them. I wasn't sure what Imani's deal was. She only mentioned that Jubjub, supposedly the Dario of their group, was trying to delay the monsters coming here. Nothing else after that. Random people I hadn't seen before were on my left, survivors who wanted to throw me out of the room for their safety. Trying to make sense of the rabble, I gathered that Finley promised to stop attacking if they gave me up. Amusing that this has happened twice. Finley also did this exact same thing in my old condo. We should secure the door instead of arguing. Tesh limped forward, his fists ready to rumble despite his injury. The girl goes out first. Then we barricade the door. A guy wearing overalls said. The woman with the shadow powers will protect us, Kira added. You don't know that for sure, cried a woman in a secretary's outfit. Just give her to the Adumbri so all of us can live. Others in their group voiced their well-thought-out arguments about why they should sacrifice a cute girl like me to save their asses. Can't you people hear yourselves? Kira hugged me protectively. I flinched, about to punch her for impermissible touching. It was one thing for people to carry my lifeless body and a wholly different matter if my soul, if that was how it worked, had returned inside it. Kira shouted at the others, oblivious to how close she was to losing her head. We're no better than Adumbri if we throw her out to die. I have a family, a sobbing woman said. Please, they need me back. I'm going out, I declared, extracting myself from Kira's arms. Because I need to reach the door to teleport to the Tea Party's base. But you'll die. Kira said. If that Adumbri specifically wants me for some reason, then he won't kill me. I'm sure of it. I'll find an opening to escape. What's important is that all of you are safe. The other survivors cheered me on. Aaron doing protagonist things. Dean would be so proud. You bastards are fine with letting an injured girl go out to those monsters. Kira pulled on her husband, who had a frown on his face. We can't let Aaron, Tesh, Imani, say something. Injured? I checked my body. Blood stains on my back. Didn't hurt. Duh. Who was carrying? My eyes locked with Imani's. She blinked and turned away, hiding bloody hands behind her back. As if it couldn't be more obvious. Why didn't she kill me if she knew I was an Adumbri? Imani wasn't like Cuckoo Dean, who had a reason, got it. Not an Adumbri. She thought I was an artificial core holder like Dean, and we were keeping it a secret. For some reason. This was the most plausible conclusion from Imani's perspective. And now, Imani wasn't stopping me from going out because she thought, more like hoped, I'd save them with my secret artificial core powers. It might be too much for her to outright join the people wanting to sacrifice my pretty self, so she decided to shut up on the side. Hear that? Someone at the back of the left group yelled. Growling and shit. Everyone fell silent. Faint and distant, but definitely a large and inhuman commotion was happening. Everyone stared at each other for a few seconds as the noises grew louder. Panic-stricken faces stared at me. It was evident from their conflicted expressions that they wondered if they should forcibly grab me. Ashamed but also desperate to survive, it was hilarious how people behaved when faced with death. New knowledge of normal human behavior was always welcome and interesting. I'm going out, I repeated. And that's that. Kira lunged toward me, but the others stopped her. Even her husband pulled her away as I walked to the door. The rest parted to let me pass. This is the only way. Literally. There was no other exit. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and nobody said. He was pushing a crate, ready to barricade a door. You'll be able to escape, said the secretary. Don't worry. The Mother Core is watching over you. Here, have this. Overalls guy handed me his wrench, which I accepted with a raised brow. I have a daughter. I'll be able to see her thanks to you. Two people rushed to open the wide metal double doors, one guy pulling each wing. I expected to see the tunnels of the Tea Party base on the other side, but only a bland corridor greeted me. Walls painted half white, lower half blue, and working lights ran down the middle of the ceiling. That weird old man's powers might work only on that specific door Vanessa told me about, a couple of floors up. I stepped out. Everything was clean and normal except for a few smatterings of blood on the floor and streaks of black on the ceiling. I was yet to meet this mysterious Jubjub person. What should I do about her, Nimani? Dean and I could cook up something later. We could add a few more murders to our list of crimes. Roars echoed from the left end of the passage. Jubjub was fighting them. The people behind me nervously murmured as they hurried to close the doors. Kira's screams for my name were instantly muffled as the doors slammed shut. Her voice was further covered by banging sounds as the others barricaded the door. Show time. I opened my right hand. Liquid gold rose from crystals on the palm, its golden glow reflecting on the white walls and floor. Gold turned red as the floating blob took shape. As much as I'd like to stretch my sleepy body and brawl with the parasite monsters as errand, gauging how I'd fare compared to Dean childish shit, is all I needed a good meal after a nice nap. I threw the wrench overalls guy gave me upward. As it twirled mid-air, I placed Blanchette's mask on my mouth, fitting it snugly against my chin. And the mask turns into a face. A gloved hand with clawed fingertips caught the falling wrench. I had no idea why I did that, but it was cool. As customary, I snapped my jaws, relishing the impact coursing through my skull as my sharp fangs clashed against each other. I missed this so much. It could be this form's predatory instincts or just my eagerness to fight after getting bullied as Pinot, but shivers of excitement ran through my body while I savored the power of my muscles. I held the wrench between my teeth and crunched down. The metal was deformed. Another bite, stronger this time, and it broke. Really cool. I spat out the nasty-tasting pieces. Not so cool. The stench of something nastier went up my hypersensitive nose, a huge downside of Blanchette's enhanced senses. Smelly and noisy. Parasite monsters were coming. I sprinted down the corridor. Shadows up ahead, peeking from the corner. But it wasn't the tentacle bastards that appeared. A couple of gun-toting men wearing masks and goggles, the attire of Tea Party grunts, ran out of the corner. I didn't need Pinot's vision to know they weren't humans, they had a different odor. Couldn't quite put my finger on it, but nothing here smelled human. They stopped for a second upon spotting me. Finley must be surprised seeing me awake and transformed. Then they opened fire. Without hesitation, without slowing down, I charged at them. Pinpricks in various points of my body. Some bullets nicked my cheeks. A couple pinged off my bared fangs. These dummies were good shots. Small injuries were still injuries. My power kicked in. Power and rage bubbled from within me. Letting loose a throat-tingling roar, I leaped, arms out, mouth wide open. Eating clay wouldn't benefit me, I just wanted to let loose and destroy stuff. But a split second before my claws reached the clay dummies, a river of tentacles surged from the side and enveloped them. I bounced off the squirming mass of flesh and landed on my feet. Who dared take my trash prey? The owner of the tentacles loomed to my right, a squat humanoid blob that nearly filled the whole corridor, its head squashed against the ceiling. The yawning hole across its distended abdomen spewed tentacles. It pulled the clay dummies to its stomach. Grower arc. This'll be disgusting, though I had a different standard for that as Blanchette. The blob glowered with beady eyes peeking through folds of face fat. Several tentacles burst out of its stomach, coming for me. It was as if they moved in slow motion. I could discern the individual tentacles, predict where each would land. My muscles tensed, ready to evade. I crossed my arms as a shield and didn't move away. I couldn't do the martial arts evasion shit like Dean. I skidded a foot back from the impact. Tentacles pierced my legs, abdomen, and arms. None went through my body. Such a weird sensation feeling them inside my muscles like an itch I couldn't quite scratch because it was beneath my skin. Roar. I slashed the tentacles and pulled their wriggling severed ends out of my flesh. Black goo sprayed me, making me more irritated. The blob sent all of its tentacles in one mass, a gigantic punch slamming me against the wall. I tore the mass of tendrils, biting and swallowing mouthfuls of flesh. I grabbed the tendrils, shredding them, shoving handfuls into my mouth. They're just spaghetti, I told myself. Nothing to be disgusted about actually, I was fine eating it. I had to fill the void in my stomach. Need to consume. Need the prey that dared attack me to be in my stomach. The blob waddled awkwardly as it tried to retreat. I held on to its tentacles, slurping them like a competitive pasta eater. The blob forcefully pulled back, tearing its own tentacles. I jumped on it and chomped its flat head. My fangs pierced its skull. Crushing bones was like munching on crispy chicken skin, always enjoyable. In the few seconds I allowed myself to binge, I had already devoured half of the blob. It wasn't dead yet, I still hungered for it, but I had places to be. This monster could go wherever it wanted, maybe a stroll to the room with Imani and the other survivors. I moved to the next in line in the freak show, a massive mouth, large enough to swallow me whole. It was sort of a giant version of Vanessa's almond babies, but this one had human legs. I dove straight into its gaping maw. It chomped down, a powerful bite. Its incisors, as large as books, sliced into my back and reached my bones. Not minding the pain, I scrambled its insides, eating and clawing myself through its body. Light. I emerged on the other side. Just to meet more monsters. Grower. I stood much taller. My snout had lengthened, filled with dagger-like fangs pushing against each other. The back of my muscled arms had bright red fur. Claws grew out of my boots, scraping the floor tiles. The parasite monsters tried to back away, a rare display of intelligence from their usual mindless attacks. Like a weed whacker, I shredded through them until I reached an intersection of hallways. Chopped-up monster corpses were strewn around. They were sliced into neat cubes, unlike how I dismembered my prey. The area had a paint job courtesy of the black goo from the parasite monsters and the mysterious dark streaks that were manifestations of Jubjub's power. But where was she? My ears perked up and faced the passage to my left, picking up faint voices. Only now did I notice that my hoodie had merged with my head. One of the voices sounded familiar. It was not the way to the next floor, but I decided to make a little detour. No more eating, errand, I scolded myself. I was getting too big. I had to crouch, almost walking on all fours, to avoid hitting the lights on the ceiling. Eating or crushing, I was okay with anything so long as I could kill my next prey. He was going to be a slippery one. My friend, I caught you. Finley sounded much clearer. You're so happy with just that, asshole. A woman's voice replied. Jubjub, I presumed. You were trying to catch me. I was trying to catch you. I won our friendly competition. Hooray. The corridor was clear. The two were in a room further ahead. 2. Maybe more. Finley knew I was here. Suspicious that he didn't post a clay man as a lookout. Could he run out of whatever material he squeezed out of his ass to make those dummies? I stalked closer and closer, careful not to make any noise. Even though I was huge, I stealthily moved, carefully coordinating my muscles to control the heaviness of my steps. The fleshy padding on my hands and feet, more like paws at this point, deadened the noise. Just kill me. I'll die with no regrets, Jubjub said. Her voice sounded breathy. She groaned, probably injured. Your plans are already ruined. Ruined? Finley laughed. You don't know anything, my friend. An open door. Their scent wafted from there. My ears prickled at the sounds of movement. I rushed forward. 4 people, 1 woman wearing all black and 3 identical Tea Party goons with their faces covered. 2 men pointed guns and strong flashlights at the woman while a third held her hands behind her. Their scents, their movements. Jubjub's eyes widened as I reached into the room and grabbed one of the men. Tough like a well-done steak with a bit of crunch. A yelp. I squeezed tighter. The man shattered into dozens of pieces. With no more guns trained on her, Jubjub broke free of the clay dummy holding her. She knocked its head off with an expert back kick. Then she caught one of the flying shards and threw it at the light on the ceiling, turning it off. That's her weakness. There was still light from the dropped flashlights in the corridor, but Jubjub had enough shadows to cloak herself, and she disappeared. Not even a thank you. Jubjub might have thought I was a parasite monster, given all the black goo covering my fur. She must be heading to Imani. Now, where's Finley? Footsteps. A bit of a struggle, but I managed to turn around in the cramped corridor. A man stood at the intersection I had passed, waving at me. I rushed toward the clay man, running over it as I stepped into the intersection. Another clay man positioned himself by the hallway going to the stairs. I smashed him too. More clay men dotted my paths, leading up the stairs to the next floor, then again one more level. I destroyed them all and the monsters that stood in my way. I knew where these walking ceramic pots were leading me. After Finley saw me, he must have devised a plan to lure me to the Tea Party's base, to what he thought was a ready trap. He drew attention to himself and Jubjub so his clay men could position themselves as breadcrumbs to the right door while I was distracted. Unfortunately for him, he didn't know I wanted to enter their base anyway. Too bad he didn't kill Jubjub before I arrived. He really wanted to do his friendship shtick with her. His whole act was so blatant. But this showed he didn't know what was going on. This also confirmed Vanessa's story about infighting in their group. Maybe I could ask Vanessa to help me kill Finley as payment for joining their side. Finley entered a door. I checked the signs. Men's restroom. And that running stick man poster on a metal door nearby probably meant the emergency staircase. An eyeball familiar scuttled across the floor and parked itself in front of the door Finley entered. It was the right place. The bell started ringing, and the restroom door changed. What does the eyeball familiar taste like? I was about to reach for the tiny eyeball when I recalled that it was a part of Vanessa. I'd rather not eat that. Back to the mission. The door opened, revealing the tunnel that Dean and I had passed before. This was going to be a tight squeeze. Both my arms first, then my head. My chest was my widest part, it couldn't fit. I struggled to pull myself through, ignoring the pain. Hopefully, the doorframe wouldn't break and cut me in half during teleportation. Fur got torn off, then skin, then flesh. I continued through myself, breaking some ribs to compress my chest. My legs and swishing tail followed. I crawled down the tunnel. Then I sniffed the air. Humans nearby. I ran to them. What the hell was that? An earthquake? One of them said, likely referring to my very forceful teleportation. Dunno, man. Alarms wailing everywhere. We should. Hey, you feel that? Yeah. What a bitch. I emerged out of a passageway and chomped on them. Blanchett is in the house. And that house was the Tea Party's base. The rain of bullets barely reached the threshold of a mosquito bite, it felt like actual rain massaging my face. Couldn't even make me bleed. Bring out the strong prey for me to eat. Adumbri. Augmented humans. I advanced down the corridor toward the squad of Tea Party men positioned on the other end, snarling my displeasure at their pathetic efforts to stop me. Ordinary people were not worth the energy to chew. Bullets couldn't do the job, so grenades came. The metal pine cones lazily arced across the air. I saw the precise moment they burst open, fragmented, expanding fire and force. I was blinded for a second, idiotic to stare directly at them. Explosions in such a compact space finally managed to hurt me. The side of my face smoldered. My muscles were sore from the blast waves. The smell of my burnt hair and flesh infuriated my nose. The tunnel also partially collapsed, with rocks and soil falling on me, pissing me off more. I continued my crawl, not speeding up but also not slowing down, plowing through the earth and crushing rocks beneath my hands and feet, an unflinching, unstoppable monster. Those were always cool in horror movies. The guards screamed and broke ranks as I came closer and closer. However, one guy was particularly brave. He remained standing in my way, lugging a metal tube on his shoulder. He shouted something at me. I could clearly hear his words, but my mind chose to ignore the squeaks of a creature about to die. There was a flash of flames and puffs of smoke. A projectile came from my face. Boom! I charged at the man who fired, biting down on his torso. Only his lower body remained standing like a leg mannequin modeling pants in a department store. The rest of him got chewed in my mouth, the pieces of flesh and bones, then flushed down my gullet. Blood, smoke, metal, earth, the odors of many different people that have passed through these corridors. My powerful nose took them all. Wading through the mesmerizing mess, I zeroed in on a specific scent: Amberdine. You. The sane errand part of me was weirded out smelling my friend in this much detail, but the predator Blanchett part had no issues tracking a scent. I was trying to find my own trace when I was Pinot, but I couldn't pinpoint what it should be. Plastic? Metal? There were tons of metal around here. When it came to Dean, I knew her signature scent, her soap, probably shampoo, could be her perfume of cotton candy. It jumped out from the earthiness of the surroundings. My mom was already out of here, the rest could just roll over and die for all I care. I'd trash this place, disrupting whatever shit the tea party was doing, which was undoubtedly evil, and saving the day. That was my official press release. My real intention was to fight the Adumbries scurrying around this hole that would be their grave. I had more control of Blanchett's werewolf form than ever before, but I couldn't entirely suppress certain aspects of it. Or did I not want to fully stamp out this form's animalistic and feral side? An altogether different experience of rage when hunting strong prey, anger, and ferocity on a level I could never as errand. I didn't consider myself a thrill seeker, but maybe I was. Strong prey, I needed to find that first. Prey that'd fight back. Prey that'd cause me great pain, make me feel the risk of dying, the thrill of a fight with my life on the line. But I wasn't going to die. Many times I had towed the line between life and death, but I never thought I'd actually die. Still trying to figure out what fear was supposed to smell like. But there was something there. Something. It oozed out the pores of a man crouching between two large crates. Smell of his tears. Smell of his piss. And then an odor that was nothing but also something like tasteless water that tasted like water. It was more of an aura telling me there was no threat from him. Weakness. Submissiveness. I stopped next to him. The man faced the wall, like a dog thinking it was hidden if it couldn't see its owner. He covered his ears as if not hearing me would make me disappear. He sobbed, mumbling nonsense like family and about the pay not being worth it and regrets random stuff. I pressed him against the wall, my hairy palm as wide as his curled-up body. Gently at first. His muscles tensed, and his heart pounded so hard I felt its beating through his back. His breathing became harried as he needed more oxygen, but he was also trying to stop himself from making any noise, terribly failing at that. Amused, I continued pushing him to the rough wall. He whimpered. I pressed and pressed, interested in how long he could hold a scream. Cracks from bones and wet popping noises. Warm blood spread across my palm. One tiny yelp, and that was that. Props to him for keeping quiet until the last second. I would have let him live as a reward if he wasn't already dead. His buddy, on the other hand, was very loud. "You monster. I'll pay." Another man came at me with a sling of grenades across his chest. Their pins were removed. His mouth was opening and closing, shouting irrelevant words. I couldn't bring myself to care what he said. His smell of fear radiated more than his friend. And yet, he waved his arms, trying to get my attention. Interesting difference in reaction, and quite a heroic one. I award him the Dean Badge of Stupidity. I opened my mouth wide, and he willingly jumped into it. My teeth pierced his midsection, but I didn't completely bite down. He struggled inside my mouth while his legs wiggled outside as if I had a snake's tongue. Some of the men stopped running and looked back. Did they think their buddy's plan would work? The wiser ones continued to flee. Explosions forced my jaws open. The man in my mouth disintegrated. My jawbones got dislocated. My cheeks stretched and tore, my neck and chest experienced the same. Flames rushed down my throat and heated my chest. Smoke gushed out my nose. I was disoriented for a couple of seconds, seeing all white and hearing nothing other than a high-pitched whine. Great agony overcame me. I furiously coughed, wildly shaking my head, hitting the walls and ceiling as if it'd make the pain disappear. People cheered. I roared, drowning their voices. Annoying little shit. Pain. Pain. Pain, pain. What was the pain? My jawbones clicked back in place. The flesh of my throat and cheeks stitched shut. The voices of the cheering men died down, and their faces fell. These idiots seriously thought I'd die from this childish antic. False hope. Fun to crush it. Despair, that's what they're feeling, isn't it? I swiped the men. My hand moved so fast that their bodies exploded. Some of them barely resisted, standing dumbfounded, perhaps accepting their fate. Others tried to shoot me, knowing they couldn't run away fast enough. Despair. What did that feel like? I doubted I was capable of such emotion. I could mimic these men's facial expressions and actions, but I couldn't wrap around my head what despair was. Happiness, sadness, anger, those sort of shit, I didn't experience them as an average person did, but I felt them nonetheless, just in low doses. It was easy to approximate how others would act. Despair, on the other hand. From flesh and bone, I now crunched flesh, bone, and metal. These Tea Party people had a lot of tech stuff to throw at me. I preferred attacking the base of the 2ms below if the food they served was edible. I spat out bits of metal. Disgusting crap ruining my meal. This way, this quick. Gather. We fight here. Electro trap, kill it. Shouting. Many different voices. All insignificant. Clouds of fear rolled through the people. I breathed deeply, hoping that inhaling their fear would give me a glimpse of the sensation. Such a weird thing I did there. I chuckled, but it came out as harsh and guttural noises. Everyone ran to an artificially dug cave with a semicircular opening. It looked like an airplane hangar built underground, like a hidden base of a villain. Wait, this was the hidden base of a villain? Cool. These people probably had a plan for drawing me there. Were they concentrating their forces in one place for me to eat faster? I doubted they were that considerate. They probably wanted to try new ways of failing to kill me. Dean and my Pinot self didn't pass through here earlier. The way we took following Vanessa's pet led to the upper levels of the base, circling the periphery of the great cavern at its center. If I continued on that path, I'd get stuck in smaller tunnels. And I wanted to go straight to the buffet, not above it. Though a titanic werewolf falling out of nowhere was a hilarious image. I entered the cave. Gunfire and explosions greeted me. My fur burned away and regrow like a time-lapse video of growing weeds replayed continuously. Most bullets bounced off my flesh. Those that could penetrate were immediately spat back out as the wounds healed. The acrid smell of gunpowder filled the air. Hooray! My powerful half-roar half-howl blew away the smoke. The sides of the cave were stacked with metal crates, freight containers, machines unfamiliar to me, and heavy equipment that was probably used for digging out this base. At the center of the cave, the Tea Party men had used forklifts to arrange several crates into a sort of barricade, taking up positions behind it, and added the forklifts into the wall. 3 containers weren't aligned with the rest, their ends instead pointed at me. Through their open doors, I saw each had a whirring cannon-like machine inside with glowing parts operated by frantic people. Probably a Dumbry-killing weapons or some bullshit. The Tea Party got plenty of fabulous toys, and their base looks way bassier than the 2MS. They didn't have plenty of a Dumbry in their ranks, so this probably made up for it. Blue beams fired out of the sci-fi cannons and hit me. Ruaha! My muscles painfully seized as if the crampiest cramps plagued my whole body. I gnashed my teeth, saliva frothing as I endured the pain. I tried to regain control of my body and continued moving forward despite my muscles not listening. I couldn't think straight, I just focused on those machines shooting at me. Destroy sci-fi shit. Destroy the sci-fi shit. But before I could reach the beam cannons, they started fizzing and clanking. The Tea Party people operating them scattered. Did something go wrong? The power of the beams weakened, and the pain was subsiding. Wrong for them. I leaped at the machines, tearing through the metal container like ripping open a present and smashing its contents. Disappointingly, the machines just sputtered and broke apart. No explosions. I destroyed the other crates, squishing the men who didn't escape quickly enough. I lifted a forklift between my jaws and gnawed it into several pieces. Again, no explosions. What should a girl do to get some explosion around here? I noticed 3 objects flying toward me from the corner of my eye. I just had enough time to raise my arms to block them. The missiles exploded and hammered me to the ground. The blast was so powerful that the floor beneath me broke as I slammed into it. Strips of flesh got torn off my arms, leaving bare bones behind. I want to cause explosions, not the other way around. Rauark! I roared at the augmented assholes with giant spider legs growing from their backs, scampering across the ceiling of a large cavern. They had missile launchers attached to their shoulders, shooting me from above. I grabbed a loose tire from the forklift and threw it at one of the spider bastards like a frisbee. It hit the missile he had just launched, causing an explosion right in front of him. It also caught a couple more of his multi-legged buddies. Explosions. I stood tall on my hind legs and howled in celebration. Then I picked up slabs of cement that was once on the floor and threw them at everything that looked like it'd explode. I also tried hitting the crates to see what was inside them. I got lucky and hit what might have been a bunch of ammo. It went off and caused a chain of detonations. Soon enough, everything was on fire. The ground shook from blast after blast. My acute senses were overwhelmed by it. The smell of everything burning occupied my noise, and explosions and screams melded into one noise, deafening me. I only saw red and orange as the fire raged. I blended in the blaze with my crimson fur. Nah, I'm just on fire too. The cave storage whatever turned into an oven. I walked to the opposite side of the cave, leisurely observing my handiwork. I was a giant werewolf with patchy burning hair and skin bubbling from the heat, and I was feeling giddy, the pain a simple footnote in my mind. Sirens blared. Heavy metal doors appeared from the sides of the exit, threatening to lock me here. I rushed to stop them from closing. I gripped the metal doors, crumpled them, and pushed them open. Their mechanisms tried to push back but failed and gave out. Hray-oh! I howled as I bent the doors open like they were cardboard, allowing the fire to spread. Destruction. Fun. A strong gust of wind blew away the fire that had spilled into the tunnel outside the cave oven. Cold. Very cold. I stopped in my tracks, surprised at the sudden temperature change. Raising my arms, I noticed my fur had turned into icicles, the frost spreading on my skin. At the left end of the tunnel, a floating woman appeared, swirling blue particles wrapped around her, braiding into her floating white hair. She opened her glowing blue eyes and mouth and said, "I'm here to preserve the specimen. Hardy, make sure you minimize the damage to its body when you neutralize it." Coming out the bend at the right end of the tunnel, a shirtless muscular man appeared carrying a sledgehammer with its head ending in a curved spike. His hairy chest could rival mine. Another weird observation, and his thick arms were laced with threads of burning ruby. Finally. A challenge. Instinctively, I knew they'd last longer than any enemy I had, especially because I had seen Hammerman before. He was the one who killed the puppet I used as a distraction when we kidnapped the old man with teleportation powers. Could these two make me feel despair? Likely not, though an approximation would be nice. It was like an ice cream flavor with a peculiar name that I was sort of willing to try because I was particularly adventurous on a particular day. I was really interested in it because I had seen it several times this day. Then I'd eat them to satiate my intense hunger. Eat and grow stronger. I drooled at the prospect of tasty food, flowing down my mouth and dripping along the ground. I snapped my jaws as a challenge to them. Ice Woman waved her arms, sending a cascading hailstorm toward me. Hammerman charged, his sledgehammer crackling with black electricity. Plan A, B, C, up to Z, continuing to the Sumerian cuneiforms, Black Spade had a plan for every plausible eventuality, including their base coming under attack. But he never imagined a giant doggy mascot showing up out of thin air like his pesky relatives when his wealthy father died. How was he supposed to consider this improbable scenario? What plan could he pull out of his bag of tricks to save their base that March Hare entrusted to him? To make matters worse, Vanessa told him this doggy was a true Adumbry. Not only that. If March Hare were here, he'd smack the back of Black Spade's head for his impropriety. But the stress of the situation was getting to Black Spade, the likelihood of losing another base this time, their actual headquarters weighing heavily on his mind. And he never respected anyone from Mark's organization, human or Adumbry, including the asshole Mark himself. Vanessa didn't take issue with Black Spade's raised voice or how he addressed her, unlike other Adumbry prima donnas who thought of themselves as demigods. She calmly answered, "I'm certain of it. I was there that night, the same night the bid raided Eve. In the end, the bid decided to overload their Greaves reactors to bring the whole place down," Black Spade completed through gritted teeth. Yeah, everyone knows that. Only the top bid people had Greaves reactors, the top of the freaking top. And they couldn't get rid of one Adumbry. 1. It spoke of how big a headache this giant doggy was that the bid caused a mini-nuke explosion under a densely populated city, killing dozens as collateral damage, in a desperate bid to kill it, which failed. How in the mother core's ass did this overgrown mutt get here? Geely, can you hear me? Plan CF, got it. Black Spade called his men on the intercoms, instructing them what to do. Sir, what about the hostages and those smelly? No, sir. I'll get right on it. You do that. Black Spade paused for a few seconds, chewing his tongue while pondering the supplier's reaction. March Hare was meeting the supplier right now. But what could they do in this situation? Available information indicated that they couldn't stop the giant doggy. Black Spade might be eccentric, but he wasn't delusional. Next order on the menu was buying as much time as possible for Plan CF. Excavation team. Black Spade checked if he was broadcasted on the correct speaker. Wake up, you idiots. Sir, reporting here, sir, replied the foreman of the workers for base expansion. The alarms and shit, we done know. Shut up and listen to me, Black Spade barked at the microphone. Set up demolition charges along tunnels TA-1 to TA-3C. We're going to cut off Sector A. Done. Think we have enough explosives, sir. The construction needs about an hour. Wrong answer. 40. You have 20 minutes. Don't need anything fancy. After running the lines, dump all other explosives there. Collapsing Sector A on top of the giant doggy might be enough to delay it, though doggies were known for being good diggers. It had to do. 20 minutes. Black Spade knew the store that sells 20 minutes. The problem was that the only currency accepted was lives, which was okay with him so long as it wasn't his own. You see that giant doggy? Black Spade called the head of the mercenaries guarding the base. Technically, the man Black Spade was talking to was already the third in the line of command, the previous two heads already in the doggy's stomach. Bait it into storage A1. Do whatever you can. Black Spade then directed the formation of defenses at storage A1, calling up everything they could muster on short notice: the 8th Squad, their augmented spider team, their activated combat drones, and even the prototype electroshock silo cannons. But these weren't enough to buy 20 minutes at the store. He dialed up the discount coupons. Hardy. Hardy. Static replied. Black Spade frowned. Hardy, the hairy, serial chest displayer, should be somewhere in their base. Did that musclehead go ahead and stupidly die on his own? If only Redhead were here. The short-tempered, animalistic Adumbry was trustworthy in comparison. Hardy, you idiot. Are you there? Black Spade held a clenched metal fist over the comms but exerted enough self-control not to smash it. It wasn't the time for a tantrum. Hardy, you need to head over to storage A1. We'll draw the enemy there. If everyone works together. I'll get Renace, and we'll break that enemy to pieces, alrighty. No, listen to me. You should head. Sit tight, BS. Let the big boys deal with this, yeah. And then there was static. The exact opposite of splendid. Black Spade dramatically cried out, raising his hands to the heavens. Do Adumbry get pea-brains filled with concentrated ego after losing their humanity? He looked over his shoulder. Not you, Vanessa, dear. You've been an absolute darling, the nicest of the bunch I've met. Thanks. Vanessa was strangely calm. What do we do next? Should we escape? What's that plan you were mentioning? We'll escape later, Black Spade said. Before that, we need to find the helpers of our doggy friend. A dog can't get in the house unless somebody lets it in. From the giant doggy pissing their base to destruction, the main screen changed to show captives escaping their cages. Finley's poor quality wares, supposed to be on guard duty, were failing the guarding part. A short but well-built man smashed them to bits, unfazed by the bullets riddling his body. Only after he destroyed the last clay puppet did he drop to his knees, blood pooling beneath him. What do we have here? Black Spade mumbled. He crawled to a woman lying on the ground, probably dead, caught by the earlier crossfire, and laid his hands on her. It wasn't clear from the camera's angle, but the woman's body appeared to shrivel, her clothes flattening. Then the man stood up, instantly well again. Not a human. Sucking up flesh and bone. Black Spade had seen that ability in action before. Those blasted clowns are here, he furiously pointed at the screen. Do you know this person? Vanessa asked. He and his buddies attacked us before, Black Spade said. He briefly explained his suspicions that rivals of the supplier sent them. These clowns went after the Mad Hatter, at the same time leaking the location to the bid. A three-way fight ensued, resulting in Mad Hatter's death. If we're going to get technical, our old boss killed himself not to get captured, though they were the ultimate cause of it. Is he with the werewolf Adumbry? You tell me. Black Spade said. I haven't seen him before. The werewolf was alone when he attacked Eve. Bah. Doesn't matter if they're allies or they just led the stray doggy here. Black Spade returned to scanning the cameras. There should be other clowns crawling around. That man came from the cages. He stayed there, blending with other hostages until somebody released them. The same somebody who killed my men. He gestured to the violently mauled corpses in the control room, and took Legba too. Did you see who it was? A blonde woman, Vanessa said. She ran away after I came across them. I had no clue what was happening with the blaring alarms, so I decided to protect Legba instead of chasing her. We can ask Legba. Not worth the bother. Haven't seen that antique prune do anything besides wave his bell. A sliver of Black Spade's mind distrusted Legba. With teleportation powers, the midget old man could have been the way the doggy entered their base. Black Spade should be careful not to let his suspicion show. I'm sure of the blonde woman part, Vanessa said. She's quite tall, long hair, and... I know who you're talking about, Black Spade said. The metal lady at the convention center who ruined Plan A had a blonde friend tagging along. He stopped scrolling through the camera feeds, zeroing in on a woman tearing electrical wirings in the power room. A couple of dead guys with smashed heads were at her feet. That's her. Vanessa said. So many clowns clowning around, Black Spade grumbled. We need a clown repellent spray. This was the same woman who fought Redhead. She survived. On the other hand, where was Redhead? The last time Black Spade saw Redhead was before the explosions preceding the police assault on the Greaves Convention Center. If Blondie was here, did that mean Redhead was dead? Blondie was like darling Vanessa over here, no longer human. Black Spade twirled his mustache. He rarely did this because it felt too cliché, though it calmed him down and helped him concentrate. Priorities, they had to delay the giant doggy. They also had to stop the two superhumans from wreaking havoc while evacuations were ongoing. Blondie released only the hostages, not the monsters. She wasn't using the hostages as a distraction but intended to save them. So why was she working with the giant doggy? A destroyed base meant dead hostages. Were they not working together? That didn't matter. One thing was certain: they had to direct all their troops to tame the giant doggy. As for Blondie and her friend, as much as Black Spade wanted revenge on them for Mad Hatter's death, now wasn't the time. Black Spade had to neutralize them somehow without diverting their forces. If you clowns want to save people that much, I'll make your dreams come true. Black Spade released the monsters created by the stinky slugs. What are you doing? Vanessa said. Distracting our enemies, Black Spade. We're going to lose everything here anyway. Yow, sleeveless magenta, said a bored voice behind them. What's going? Oh, looks like a bad time. Euphonia was by the doorway, clicking her mechanical claws. For the last time, the name's Black Spade. He narrowed his eyes. Could he trust her? No. But did she have a part in this mess? That was a different question. Also, yes, this is a bad time. You should wear something black too. Black Spade. Crocker shoved Euphonia out of the way and rushed to the monitors. What the hell's going on? Hell is going on right now, he said, gesturing to the videos of the ongoing battles in their base. We have to evacuate. Plan CF. We're now shifting to delaying tactics. No. We're not leaving this place. Are you going to fight this thing? Black Spade enlarged the video feed of the giant doggy entering storage A1. Be my guest. If you lose, I'll have everything prepared. Where's Renace and Hardy? They're going to pet the mutt. You're welcome to join them. All these self-entitled, nose in the air, elitist twats who thought they were better than humans could all die together. What if he buried Crocker along with the doggy? You're going to come with us. Crocker grabbed his arm. What? I'm going to direct the evacuation. Black Spade tried to pull away. The tattoos on Crocker's arm began to glow an angry red. You're going to direct squat, she said. Everyone's going to fight, that's what I say. March Hare put me in charge, Black Spade countered, trying to sound calm despite the anger inside. Him. Everyone's coming with me. Crocker barked. I'm not included in that everyone, Euphonia said. I'll sit right here and enjoy the show. You traitor. Traitor? Our agreement was limited to the Greaves Convention Center. We'll pay you. Name your price. No, thank you. I had a long night. Euphonia's eyes glowed red, hinting a dare at Crocker to strike first. Crocker grunted in resignation. She looked at Legba. The old man hadn't moved an inch since Vanessa placed him on a chair. Crocker shook her head. Next, she turned to Vanessa. How about you, pretty girl? Going to fight or hang back? Black Spade raised a brow. Vanessa would surely refuse. She knew how strong their enemy was and wanted to stay as far as possible. Mark's people would also love to see the Tea Party destroyed. That drat Finley must have already left them. But Black Spade was wrong with his assumption of Vanessa. I'm going, she said. I want to see this Adumbree again. Is this still errand? A mountain of muscle and fur emerged through the clouds of dust from a tunnel that collapsed, shrugging off slabs of rocks. Roar! The mighty roar made Vanessa and the others involuntarily step back. Vanessa felt the hair behind her neck stand. Her heart pounded like she had a caffeine high. The mouth familiars living inside her right arm chattered and stirred, banging against the metal bands keeping them in place. Vanessa breathed slowly and tried to calm herself. If she got agitated, her familiars became rabid. She focused on Erend, the giant werewolf. Erend chased the combat drones rolling away. Vanessa noticed Erend had a lopsided gait. Her left hind leg was a bloody ice-covered stump. This must be Renee's handiwork. Vanessa didn't know anything about Renee other than she had ice powers. Renee's got the wolf. Crocker cheered. She told me her powers could stop an Adumbree's regeneration. This is the first time I've seen it in action. Got. Black Spade said. Can barely consider that as got. Where's Renee anyway? I don't know. She should be here. But she's not, Black Spade said, his grim tone echoing what they were all thinking. I know where Hardy is. Help. Help. A hoarse voice pleaded through the drone of gunfire and strings of explosions. Help me. Vanessa noticed only now that Erend had captured Hardy. His head poked up the side of Erend's car-sized fist. Hardy was still alive, screaming as blood gushed from his mouth and nose. Erend brought Hardy to her mouth, opened her hand, and munched. Vanessa couldn't take it. She placed her hands on her ears and turned away. Through her familiar, Vanessa had seen Erend's colossal werewolf form eat people at Eve's underground arena, but she couldn't handle seeing it with her own eyes. Brutal. Terrifying. Different from Erend in her original body. This must be the Adumbree taking over whenever she transformed. Or this was Erend's true self all along. In that case, Vanessa must accept it. She and Erend were the same. They were monsters. No reason to pretend they were still humans. Vanessa took a deep breath and faced Erend, half hoping she was done eating. Hardy's still alive. Crocker said. Erend lowered her hand, still holding Hardy's body. He continued screaming for help. The mutt isn't finishing him off, Black Spade said. But why? Hey, the frozen leg. It's regrowing its leg. You said Renee's can stop regeneration. It must have worn off, Crocker stammered. Must be connected with Hardy, and why the mutt isn't swallowing him whole, Black Spade said. We should figure out the powers of our enemy first before we're going to attack. Crocker said. Order the drones to soften up the werewolf. Will you be able to take it on? Black Spade asked. Hardy's down for the count. I'm not sure how much stronger you are compared to. I can do it, Crocker smugly said. But we'll save Hardy first. Vanessa, you attack from the left. I go from the right. Black Spade, you aim for the wrist of the hand holding Hardy. Got it? Vanessa nodded as she unlocked the metal bands on her right arm. She didn't know why she was doing this, but she wanted to hurt Erend even for a bit. Erend wouldn't mind, would she? After all, Vanessa pretended she was on the tea party's side. Just a tiny bite. Gnawing on my arm and in my arm. Those raisins were easy to spot in my sea of fur. There was a tiny bald spot around each one. They sheared off my crimson hair with their piranha-like teeth before trying to penetrate my thick skin. My senses had improved to such a degree that I could count the veiny ridges lining their bodies and isolate their gibberish babbling from all the noises around. Maybe they were actually saying something. Didn't care. Despite the mouth familiar's best efforts at chomping my fur and hide, depositing the tiny chunks they consumed into some mysterious dimensions, they certainly weren't pooping them out. Most of them barely harmed me. Only the biggest and most determined of Vanessa's angry raisins successfully drilled through my skin and burrowed into my flesh. These were the annoying ones. Like a pebble in a shoe, the itch was barely noticeable until I noticed it. And then I couldn't unnotice it. Grrrr. Where are you, Vanessa? I stomped forward, flattening the drones scampering on the floor. Disappointing. They didn't explode. Everything should explode. That was how it worked in movies. My ears twitched. Did she betray me? Too late for that, I was already turning their base upside down. More likely, she didn't want her cover blown, so she joined the tea party attacking me. Obviously, she didn't know my powers made me want to use her bones as a toothpick. Annoying. How that? You colossal mutt, were the only words I heard from Fire Tattoo. She landed and materialized another creature of fire from her tattoos. A bull was what it looked like, with oversized horns and a flat face. Gonna you. Unlike my sense of sight and smell, it was much harder to discern words. I could hear minute movements, a prey's frightened heartbeat, squeals and groans of pain, but my predator side didn't care for what weaklings had to say. I could focus on understanding words. But my errand part also didn't want to. That was boring. I raised my snout, detecting a tempting scent. The void in my stomach called for food. On a metal bridge ringing the upper wall of the cavern, there stood Vanessa, hiding behind a magenta-colored weirdo. Magenta cannon for the ends of his metal arms opened into shooty thingies. Frantically barked at Vanessa. This time, I concentrated on his voice. Distract this giant mutt, he shouted. We need more time. Time for what? Whatever their plans may be, nothing could stop me. Insert twirling mustache villain moment. Magenta Cannon had a funny mustache. I'll let his insult pass because he looked funny. And he didn't look appetizing at all. Go left, he told Vanessa. Let's play tag with this stupid dog. Got it. Vanessa traversed the bridge to the other side of the cavern. Since Mom was safe, I had time to play with these ants. What were they planning? Did they want to fail? Overwhelming power surged through my pumped muscles. Indestructible and immortal. I welcomed them to throw everything they had at me. Despair. I'd like to see it on their faces to study that elusive emotion. Funny seeing people despair. Curious too. I didn't need to understand normal human emotions to get why people despaired when up against a giant werewolf Adumbri. But what did that feel like? I turned to Vanessa. Sure, I'll play catch my friend. Her heart pounded faster. Her stomach grumbled. I could hear everything. She covered her mouth as she ran, violently coughing and gagging. I could see individual globules of tears pooling on the sides of her eyes. Didn't Vanessa mention she could taste whatever her mouth familiars ate? My memory of the night at Eve was fuzzy. She could have been talking about her eye familiars. She could see what they saw. If it worked the same for the mouth counterparts, I'd understand why she struggled to hold back a puke. I'd imagine my werewolf flesh didn't taste good at all. Was this punishment enough for rule number 4? She seemed to be suffering, and that made me smile. I pulled back my lips and bared my fangs. A wolf couldn't really smile. After what I did to her at Eve, maybe I should allow her a few hits in. Like in the movies, enemies offered a free punch before becoming allies. However, my Blanchette werewolf part didn't agree with that. Ruiger. Just a bite. Prey that dared fight back, prey that hurt me, they were food. All food. Vanessa was food. A taste might lessen Blanchette's hunger. Bothersome trying to rein in it. A leg, an arm. Both? Vanessa shouldn't mind. She could regenerate it. Get your bone, doggy. Face here. Magenta cannon aimed for my eyes, trying to get my attention. I didn't pay him any mind. My senses homed in on Vanessa. The more the raisin ticks nibbled my flesh, the more I wanted to eat her in retribution. My stomach grumbled with hunger, sticky drool streamed through my fangs, and feral instincts to feed on prey jostled my errant consciousness away from the driver's seat. And I let it. Vanessa zoomed across the walkway and swung over the railings, dropping to a lower and wider bridge. I loomed over her and chomped the metalworks, intentionally letting her escape a split second before my fangs clamped shut. Fear. I could smell it from her. Fun, fun, fun. Weird sensation in my mouth. Raisins. Vanessa must have chucked them inside when I bit down. I swished my tongue around like trying to get a stuck fishbone. I scooped the angry raisins to my teeth and ground them. Vanessa staggered, the slits on her right arm spewing blood. Smelled sweet. Holding her bleeding arm, she zoomed up a staircase, going over several steps with each stride and climbing onto another bridge that ran straight over the gap of the cavern. A small door was at the end, her goal. I should let her go. I had enough presence of mind not to kill her, but not before messing with her a bit more. I buried my claws into the ground, breaking slabs of concrete flooring. I scooped rubble and flung it at Vanessa. Covering her head, she ducked to avoid the debris. Big ones hit the walkway, knocking out the supports beneath. She managed to leap across the yawning gap and continue her escape. I hurled another handful of rocks at her. With my hand the size of a car, it was more of an avalanche. She screamed in terror. Music to my ears. She was saying stop or something. Why stop? Playtime was just getting started. Sadistic. My mom used that word once when she caught me playing with insects as a child. I pestered her about what that meant, and she never repeated it. Seeing people so tiny in comparison to me, insects really, I thought this was the best way to distract my Blanchette part from the hunger. Run, Vanessa, run. Magenta cannon and fire tattoo kept up their attacks to draw me away from Vanessa. My left eye stung, it burned, and it was fine again. Pokes on my flank. The fire bull slammed against me, a tiny hammer, a tiny pointy hammer. These two were next on the menu. Or maybe not. They scarcely hurt me, so I didn't care for them. Ice Woman and Hammer Man did a much better job than these two. However, comparing them might not be fair as I was much weaker minutes ago. Eating Ice Woman and Hammer Man fueled my growth spurt to become a building of muscle and fur. Those two were super dumb fighting me in a cramped tunnel. So easy to catch them, especially Ice Woman, who wanted to get close to my face even though she could fly and rain ice from afar. Dumb, dumb, dumb. Vanessa was near the door. I reached out to stop her, my hand a big rig slamming against the wall, blocking her way. She jumped down as I flattened the bridge. Claws out, I raked sideways, shredding the door and bringing down rocks on the opening. Vanessa landed on the ground. My shadows, multiple of them cast by the raging fires, covered her and the entire floor. She picked herself up. Terror filled her eyes. The scent of fear wafted up my nostrils. despair. Was this it? Grork. I'm on your side. I'm on your side. Vanessa shrieked was the better term, not caring who heard her. She likely thought I had lost myself to the adumbrey inside me. Errand. Remember. I roared to cover her voice. She turned tail and headed to the main exit of the cavern. A fairly large door, but I doubted if I could fit through it. Digging required. I went after her, intentionally lagging, throwing a swipe or two to give her some exercise. Would be fun if I snagged a limb. Blood, fun. My arm itched like hell. Not fun, not fun. Don't go that way, Vanessa. Magenta Cannon had jumped down to the floor as well. He didn't dare come near, hiding behind an overturned forklift while taking potshots at me. They're coming from there. Who's coming? An intrusive scent was in the air. Something familiar. But I couldn't focus because the raisins inside my arm were bugging me. Roar. I munched on my arm, biting off the portion where the mouth familiars had invaded. Pain, but also instant relief from the itchiness. I quickly chewed my flesh along with the raisins before they could start burrowing inside my mouth. More blood spurted out of Vanessa's arm. She veered left toward Magenta Cannon. Fire Tattoo headed me off, sending a whole zoo of fire summons at me. I didn't move as a blazing rhino bumped my hairy butt. Weird. My hunger was partially alleviated. The raisins were part of Vanessa. They were eating me, and I ate them. Still, they were Vanessa's body. The absurdity of the situation made me giggle while watching Vanessa and Magenta Cannon escape through a utility hole previously hidden by heavy creates. I made no move to stop them, satisfied with terrorizing and hurting Vanessa. I wasn't hungry for Magenta Cannon, he didn't hurt me enough. He also had plenty of inedible parts. Annoying. I was content to sit on my haunches and wait for the next wave of enemies. Their thick scent permeated the air. Movement caught my eye. Fire Tattoo headed for the open utility hole. She was still around. I was mulling whether to catch her when a sudden blast threw her against a pillar. A stray explosive? That means you're unlucky, I thought as I grabbed her. She struggled between my index finger and thumb, yelling boring stuff. An adumbrey brain. Better not let it go to waste. I tossed her into my mouth. Hot and smoky. She must be using her powers. After a couple of seconds of chewing, I swallowed her. Then I got up on all fours, towering in the middle of a spacious cavern. If I stood straight on my hind legs like a human, my head would bump into the ceiling. Like the thunder of an approaching storm, the noises of my next meal arrived after the scent parasite monsters. Not that they were making any sound specific to them. Just generic monster stuff. The tea party must have released them in a last-bid attempt to stop me. More food. Most of my errand part sunk to the depths of my mind, deciding to sit this one out. In my current form, I wasn't disgusted by the thought of eating parasite monsters. And their scent didn't bother me at all. Overpowering and pungent, but I had eaten worse. Frankly, it wasn't that bad. There was a hint of sweetness mixed in like candy. Cotton candy? My ears prickled. As the din of the monster horde grew louder, a lone female voice stood out. Upon hearing it, my errand consciousness came to the surface, pushing away the feral instincts of werewolf Blanchette. Errand. Errand. Dean called. I tilted my head, my ears moving to catch her voice better. Errand, where are you? Gugh. I forgot about my best friend Awkward. How did she know I was here? Did Vanessa tell her? A blonde woman came running into the door, her hair, clothes, and skin coated by dried red blood and black slime. She gasped when she saw me, almost tangling her feet as she stopped. Gazing upward, she exclaimed, Errand. You're here. I was right that they were talking about you. She looked over her shoulder. Shadows peeked at the corridor. Parasite monsters were near. Dean hurried to me, jumping over my claws and latched onto my fur. She scaled my arm or foreleg, whichever was which. "I hope it's you in control, Erend," she said. "Gabe is telling me to go to you, so it probably is you." I growled in response. I wondered how she was going to interpret that. I overheard tea party people talking about a giant werewolf with red fur. Dean shouted from somewhere below. "It had to be you, I can feel it. Erend, listen to me. They're planning to kill you. I couldn't let that happen, so I tried to find you. If we're together, Gabe will also protect you." Parasite monsters of all shapes and sizes rounded the doorway, tumbling into the cavern in a wave of mutated flesh. I roared and swiped the front row, scooping a bunch and bringing them to my mouth. Dean took the chance to leap from my hand to face while I munched the monsters. "You must be wondering how I got here." She clambered across my forehead, pulling on my fur. "There was this guy who teleported us here, me and Pino. A door that turned into a portal. I don't know where Pino went, and I don't really understand what happened. Did the same thing happen to you?" Did she expect me to scratch words on the floor? That option wasn't possible because the floor was parasite monsters right now. They crowded around like it was grade school, and I opened a bag of candies. None were strong enough to hurt me. I forced myself to eat them, ingesting their powers as offerings for spooky Erend. Dean clung to the back of my ear and loudly spoke, "That man was looking for you. Did he find you?" I nodded. She hung on my ear as I bent down and then scrambled back up as I straightened my head to continue eating. "So that's how you got here." Dean clung tighter to my fur. Her heart was beating fast. "Your mom," she whispered. "Anyway, there's something I have to tell you," she hastily changed in almost a shout. The thought of emotionally abusing Dean excited me. I consumed the parasite monsters faster, bending down to the ground and chomping them left and right. I came across several men setting up explosives. Dean dangled from my ear like an earring as I ravenously gulped down parasite monsters. "They're going to blow up the tunnels to bury you." I asked them. There was something in the way she said that last sentence that made me think there was more involved in her asking. Dean continued, "Erend, we have to get out of here. Follow my directions, okay?" Kaboom. Bio-boom. The string of explosions continued, and the floor quaked. "Erend Hartwell." Dean shouted with all her mouth. "Turn around and enter that tunnel over there." Stronger explosions. More quaking. Rocks and dust falling. A few parasite monsters remained, most had scattered. An annoying blonde pest yelling in my ear. She pulled on my fur to get my attention. Itchy, itchy, itchy. My meal was already ruined. Fine, I'll do what she says. I headed to the tunnel behind me, picking up items Dean pointed out along the way like we were shopping. I say items, but they were more of heavy machinery and construction materials. All the while, rocks fell on my back and head. Too bad they didn't hit Dean. I shook my head, trying to catch more rocks. "Erend, hurry." Dean climbed down my cheeks to be safer. "We don't have much time." Shopping done. I had a small backhoe between my jaws, sections of reinforced concrete columns in my left hand, and a few long steel girders in my right. I hadn't really looked at this place, but it seemed the tea party was busy with construction. Sore losers destroying their stuff to get me. Their efforts would go to waste. Both in making this place and trying to kill me. I crawled through the tunnel, stacking my loot and pushing them with my head. Was this going to be safe? I enlarged this tunnel when I passed here earlier. I supposed it was less dangerous if we hid in a cramped space than staying in the open cavern if shit collapsed. Forward. Forward. Dean continued to yell. Place one steel beam here, propping the ceiling. Going to be so much fun blaming Dean for losing Mom. Bonus points if I could make her cry. Several seconds of furious crawling later, the tunnel opened up into a wider area. A few light bulbs still worked. Surprising. This was an intersection if I wasn't mistaken. Just that I covered the side tunnels with rubble as I passed. Put that yellow scoop machine there. The backhoe. I stacked the rest of the items I brought in various places according to Dean's interior decorating plan. She pulled my fur whenever she wanted me to do something. Last girder over there, Dean said. Place it diagonally against the ceiling. What now? Strings of louder blasts. Close to us. Getting closer. Crashes of heavy objects. Everything shook so much that Dean wildly swung from the bottom of my ear like a dangling earring. Very itchy with her pulling my fur. Dust rolled through the tunnel. The cavern on the other side was collapsing. Dust and smoke. I plucked Dean from my ear and protected her with cupped hands near my chest. I curled next to a pile of rocks flanked by columns of reinforced concrete and steel girders. Clouds of dust covered me, obscuring my vision and clogging my nostrils. I cleared my nose with a mighty snort and blasted away the dust. Then I took a deep breath before bowing down, my chin to my chest, right above my hands. It turned dark as the earth covered me. Was this the second time I got buried? Third. I should find better activities. I sang in my head as the world turned upside down. This was one of the songs Dean played while we drove through the desert. Dean sounded like she was praying inside my hands. Half a minute later, the blast stopped. The earth was calm. No more explosions but plenty of other noises. Creaks of bending steel, rocks grinding against each other, pebbles rolling. And then it turned silent except for Dean's and my breathing. Everything had settled. Boulders pressed on my head and back. Heavy. Couldn't crush me. I opened my eyes and raised my head. Rocks shifted. Some rolled down the sides of my neck and head. What the? Piercing through utter darkness, I realized the rocks and concrete conveniently broke and fell in such a neat way that there was a sort of crude hole in front of me. Beyond that, there were plenty of gaps in the rubble. Our way back was going to be easy. That guardian angel. Dean pried my fingers apart. My werewolf mind was calm, probably the same as a dog inside a covered crate, so my errand self was more or less in control. No urge to eat Dean. But, like Vanessa, I wanted to mess around with Dean. I thought of closing my palms like those trap walls in movies that squished people. Nah. She came looking for me. I didn't need any saving, though I appreciated the gesture. I opened my hands and let her go. A slight pang of regret in my heart. That's the closest chance I got to kill her. No way her guardian angel could save her if I hang on. Dean could do that bullshit she did back at Eve to snap me out of my frenzy. Touché, guardian angel, I thought. Dean wasn't in any danger all this time. Errand, are you okay? I can't see much. Dean climbed over my palms and felt around my face. She touched my nose. I wanted to sneeze. She rubbed it like I was a dog. Are you hurt anywhere? The earth just fell on me. Stupid question. I raised a thumb up and slowly nodded. Feeling it move in the darkness, Dean hugged my thumb. I'm sure you're trying to hide your injuries from me. Thank you for saving me. I'm sorry I got you into this mess. If only we had caught the guy with the teleporting doors, you wouldn't have been dragged here. Pino and you don't know Pino. I forgot. I growled, trying to make it sound as unthreatening as possible. Pino, she showed up after you passed out. I even thought she was the cause of it. Maybe she was, I don't know. She's a robot, basically. I whined in surprise. At least, that was what I intended to sound like. Yeah, hard to believe. Dean shrugged. You have to see her to understand what she is, but I don't know where she went. Anyway, she helped us escape from the room. She narrated what I had done as Pino, inserting comments about how suspicious she was of me. Her story continued until the point we parted ways, and I went to meet Vanessa. At first, I thought she was in league with the teleporting door guy and lured me here. But that doesn't make sense. They should have restrained me if this was a trap. I don't believe Pino's story, though I don't think she's with the tea party. I grunted. So annoying that I couldn't talk. I freed the hostages with Gabe's help, Dean said. Pino was supposed to provide a distraction, maybe she did. There was some commotion earlier, way before you got here. I haven't seen her since. Then the parasites escaped their cells, and everything just got way crazier. Or the tea party must have released those monsters. All of them got out at the same time and attacked the people I freed. It wasn't my fault because Gabe won't let that happen. Like, they also attacked me. Yes, the tea party released them. I'm sure of it. Again, I grunted. It might have been her guardian angel's doing. Wouldn't be the first time Dean's invisible pet sacrificed others for her benefit. Everyone was running everywhere, she continued. I didn't know what was going on. I focused on saving a few people from the monsters. Tea party people also attacked us. As I said, I overheard them talking about you, I mean a werewolf, which is obviously you. Gabe guided me to you. Is the storytelling over? She left out the part about what happened to the people she was protecting. Dean walked across my palm with her hands out. I moved my head closer to her. She hugged the side of my snout while laying her head on it. Aaron, I'm sorry. You need to stay in this form a bit longer. Be strong, okay? I'm proud of you for staying in control. It must be hard to keep yourself from eating me. I snorted. I don't want to eat you. Gross. I'm really sorry. You have to remain as a giant wolf because you're our way out. Our. My brows furrowed. All of us here are counting on you to save us, Dean said. Me and the hostages. I am sure there are many still alive. There has to be. Dean smiled as she patted my nose. I knew you'd help me. We're their only hope. No, you're our only hope to reach the surface. Thank you, Aaron. I trust in you. Now, let's get out of here. I sighed and started digging. It was going to be much harder to make a new tunnel, so I followed the passage back to the cavern with the construction stuff. Dean hid in the thick fur lining my throat, grasping my hair tightly as I moved earth aside with my claws. I protected her further by tucking in my chin, using my face as a shield. Dean was like a baby monkey, hanging on to her mother while they traveled from tree to tree. I should get a show on the Animal Channel, the giant werewolf that lives underground. It was surprisingly easy to dig my way through. The girders and columns I positioned as per Dean's instructions affected the collapse of the tunnel. There were parts with minimal damage despite the powerful explosions. In one place, the girder broke the ceiling as it fell into easy-to-excavate chunks of debris. Eventually, we reached the cavern, or what once was the cavern. I recognized the markings by the exit. The stench of the parasite monsters also strengthened. I spilled fountains of black slime while snacking on them. Aaron, wait. Dean climbed back to my head. I bent low so she'd have space. Such a considerate monster I was. Light came on. It shone from atop my head. I need to see the rocks to give instructions on how to dig, Dean explained. I was going to turn on my phone earlier to check on you, but Gabe told me to save my battery. I should have charged my phone to full before leaving your condo. My phone's battery doesn't last that long anymore. She patted my head, which felt like poking with her tiny hand on my broad crown. Since we're in Vegas, might as well get the latest phone, am I right? She chuckled weakly. She was joking not only to lighten the situation but also to make herself braver. Her heart was beating fast, and I felt the coldness of her hands. Was she afraid of the darkness? Scared of getting buried underground? I grunted to join her chuckling, though it did make me think about what had happened if I ran out of Blanchette's power. How long after I stopped eating would my transformation last? Would I stay like this until I removed the mask? I hadn't tested it. I knew it was possible to get knocked out of this transformation, like when I escaped the explosion in Eve's underground arena. I resumed digging again. "Errand, head left," Dean said. "Don't touch that roundish boulder. Go over it." Having Dean telling me where to go was assuring. Also comforting. "Okay, I'm not going to bully Dean about Mom," I promised while I dug, following her directions. Dean positioned herself at the top of my snout, between my eyes. She'd get squished against the ceiling if she stayed on my head. With her phone's light, it was like Dean was my miner hat, that one with the flashlight on the forehead. There were so many boulders in our path. I squeezed under one that was almost as big as my torso. Now, I understood why the guardian angel didn't want us to stay here. These huge things falling from the high cavern ceiling would be painful. These massive rocks were difficult to move. Very. Although I had immense strength in such an advanced state of my transformation, I could juggle these boulders if I knew how. I didn't have the leverage or space to push them. I was also pushing them against tons of earth. Breaking these huge things might cause a further collapse. All I could do was rely on Dean to tell me the right way. I hate depending on her. Dig, dig, dig. We passed by several body parts of parasite monsters. Dean coughed from the smell concentrated in such a small space. "Oh my God, that smells awful," she said. "Not you, Errand. I meant those monsters." "No, I'm not calling you a monster. You're not smelly and not a monster." "That's right. That's right. Not smelly." She spoke rapidly. Her breaths were shallow. Did she have a panic attack? I shook my head a little and focused on her. She looked over her shoulder and chuckled, seeing my cross-eyed face. "Sorry, Errand," she said. "Just never mind. Gabe's telling me you should go right between those rocks down here. Push the left one, but don't move the right." Minutes passed. Our progress was slow. Even if the tea party didn't kill me, they bought a lot of time for themselves. Time to do what? If I were in their shoes, I'd probably escape if an unkillable Adumbry wanted to eat me. Should I go along with Dean's plan to save precious innocent lives, then? I already had my fill of destruction for the night, and there wouldn't be much to destroy after this. "Errand?" Dean shifted on my snout and spread her arms as if measuring something. She scooted forward, near the tip of my nose, and looked around. I took care to balance her. Then Dean turned her phone's light on me. "Errand, your nose, did it become smaller? I swear it was wider before. Are you shrinking?" My eyes widened. I focused on my nose. It was shorter. And continued to shorten. Was I returning to my Errand body? Could I transform to Blanchette straight after? Even if I could, I didn't have any means of growing big again. Unless I ate Dean. "Don't panic, Errand," Dean said. She tried to keep her voice firm, but it was wavering. "Just keep digging. We'll get out, I promise. Don't panic." Gabe foresaw this. "You sure about that?" How long had it been since I started digging through the collapsed cavern? Felt like longer than 10 minutes. Did her stupid pet see the future that I'd return to my cute and pretty self in the middle of digging? Probably not at first. But when the guardian angel's future sight range, or whatever it was supposed to be called, saw my transformation wearing off, it told us to continue anyway. "Left here," Dean said, her voice a pitch higher. "Left, no. I mean, right. Sorry, so sorry." Go right. Over this rock. My head had shrunk to the size of Dean's body. She couldn't ride on my head anymore. It would be better if she followed behind me, but she wouldn't see what was ahead to give accurate instructions. We settled in an awkward position where she pressed against my chest as I reached around her with my long arms to continue digging. Her heart raced. It pounded so hard I could feel it through her back. It also made my heart pound. This wasn't some romantic movie bullshit. Am I also panicking? Awesome. I drew my lips back, trying to smile. I sort of got my wish somehow. I continued to shrink. Dean and I were digging together. Trust Gabe, Dean continued to chant. She was on the verge of tears. We worked together to push a rock aside. A large pile of earth fell from the ceiling, covering us. The light went out. Dean cried out in a panic, thrashing about next to me. I managed to grab her arms and held her still. Don't do that or oh, I'm back. The transformation wore off. I couldn't see anything anymore. Oh my God, Aaron. Dean hugged me. It's really you. Don't panic, I repeated what she told me earlier. Pull yourself together. Where's your phone? I don't hear it is. The light returned. Thank you, Gabe. Two dirty-faced girls looked at each other. Dean's hair was messy, as if she had passed through a hurricane. I couldn't tell she was blonde with all the dirt. Her face was caked with earth. I was sure I didn't fare any better. Calm down, I said calmly, trying not to laugh. I felt giddy because of my panic, such a refreshing sensation. Getting buried was scary, for sure. What is Gabe saying? We continue digging. Okay. Let's do that. We were going to dig with the power of friendship. I can hear something, I stopped crawling. Dean accidentally headbutted my butt. I clamped the urge to kick back like a spooked horse. Shoo, quiet down a bit, I hissed at Dean. There it was again, smatterings of what sounded like gunfire. I could hear better if I turned into Blanchette, but then I couldn't talk if I did. A muffled explosion, and then it was silent again. I resumed digging, intentionally shoveling dirt back at Dean. Dean said, "We must be blurg." The beam of light from Dean's phone wildly strafed our cramped hole like we were at a rave party. What were you saying, Dean? I asked, trying not to laugh. With the dirt cleared, I shifted rocks out of our way. The light steadied and focused in front of me. I was saying, Dean said, punctuated by coughs, we must be close to an area that hadn't collapsed. I listened for a few seconds. The people shooting at each other had seemingly moved away. Then I poked the phone through the hole and examined what was on the other side. Other than some rubble here and there, the tunnel was mostly intact. There were also a couple of dead guys, one crushed by fallen debris, the other half-eaten, likely by a parasite monster. Here. I handed Dean her phone back. All clear. We're getting out of here. Oh, thank you so much, Gabe. How would I have fared on my own without Dean and her prescient pet? I might have dug into China if I didn't know where I was going. Could I die from starvation? I could eat and regenerate my flesh if I was desperate. As for water, I could drink. I'd rather not think about that. Thank you, too, Gabe, I guess. I leaned my back against a concrete slab, careful not to get skewered by the jutting rebars bent in odd angles, and positioned my feet flat on a boulder. Then I pushed with everything I got. It had been ages since I went to the gym, but I bet this was heavier than the last setting on the leg press machine. I felt the soles of my sneakers get squished like dough as my feet cracked the surface of the huge-ass boulder. The tiny hole to freedom widened inch by inch. Aaron, are you okay? Dean asked. I can help. Go. 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 Dean dove under my knees and squeezed through the hole. It became dark again. Okay, so how do I get out of here? I didn't think this through. If I released this stupid rock, it would roll back down. I hoped it wouldn't continue dropping and squishing my cute self. What other option did I have? I'd slowly lower this, and then Dean and I could gradually widen the hole by digging from both sides. I was going to be pissed if Dean's guardian angel told her to leave me behind. Don't drop it. Dean furiously punched the wall and scooped out the debris. The boulder? My quads burned. My joint strained. I couldn't hold this forever. Should I transform? Yes. Hang on, I'll get you out. My tiny burrow brightened bit by bit as the hole to my right widened. Dean suddenly grabbed my arm with both her hands. Huh? What are you? Hey. She yanked me out of the hole. We stumbled on the ground. Without me holding it up, the boulder fell back into place with a loud crash and a slight quake. Ow, ow, you should have warned me. I massaged my shoulder. Feels like my arm was going to pop right off. Sorry. Dean helped me to my feet. I was concentrating on Gabe's voice. Really super sorry. It's fine. It'll heal in a few seconds. I looked at our exit hole. The boulder mostly covered it now. I chuckled. Dean looked at me with a puzzled face. It's like in the movies, I explained. Those traps in ancient tombs. Big rolling boulders. And then the heroes will always narrowly avoid getting turned into pancakes right at the last second. Ah, you're right. Dean nodded with a confused smile. The boulders, yeah. You know those movies where there's a treasure and never mind. What's important is that we're alive. Even more important was that I nearly got squished, not Dean, solidifying my position as the main character between us. Oh, Erend. Dean hugged me, bending down to put her head against my neck. I felt her warm tears as she sobbed. Dean continued to cry. I reached up to pat the top of her dirty head. Such a drama queen. Getting buried alive wasn't too bad. Actually, I had fun, a sense of thrill I couldn't experience riding roller coasters or getting shot by guns. There was something about the situation, something with helplessness, something with giving up because there was no way out. I was so close to finding the secret ingredient of despair. Someday, I was going to feel that emotion. The threat of death wasn't doing it for me anymore. It was like spice tolerance or maybe drug tolerance. I needed stronger stuff to have fun. It's okay, it's all going to be okay, I told Dean. I gave her a good squeeze and dropped my hands. We made it out alive. Yeah, we did. Dean got the message and released me. Her tears, mixed with the dirt on her face, turned into a mud mask. The light from below Dean's phone on the floor cast creepy shadows on her face. Add in her hair that was an absolute mess. For possibly the first time in Dean's life, she appeared ugly. If you haven't seen her, then she's not here, I firmly said. That was enough fun. I'm sure Mom is safe back at the convention center. But the man said. He's an Adumbry, he can't be trusted. Well, I'm an Adumbry too, but you get what I mean. He was trying to mess with our heads. You're right, Dean said. Her tone indicated she didn't believe her own words. We'll find your mother once we get back. I thought of letting it stand here, but I didn't want a distracted Dean in case of a fight. I shouldn't have messed with her in the first place. It was just so funny, though. The man who teleported us is with the 2MS, I said. I've fought him before. But I'm not the target of the 2MS in Vegas. We planned to go to the tech fair only a few days ago. The 2MS people are helping the Tea Party with their evil plans. It doesn't have anything to do with me. The man with teleporting powers saw me, could be the security cameras, and recognized me. I don't know how they knew Mom was with us, but it's not hard to guess with her surname, Hartwell, on the program list. That man was bluffing to bait us into wherever this place is. Not exactly a good explanation. It had many holes, actually, but Dean seemed to accept it. Anything to lessen the guilt in her mind. Dean nodded. You're right, you're right. He was just bluffing. Now then, I said, let's go save other people and escape this place. I opened my right hand. Golden liquid rose out of the crystals on my palm. It might be fine by now to turn into Blanchette. I had yet to determine if I had to rest in between transformations. Mental note, experiment with my powers and learn more about them. Errand, don't do it. Dean grabbed my wrist. Don't do what? Transform. I can control myself, or I think I can. I didn't want her to know it was 100% my consciousness doing the killing and other nasty stuff. I needed the adumbry excuse if I ever had to do something evil in her eyes. I didn't, eat you. There's nothing to worry about. I trust that you won't eat me. But you might eat the what would the other people think when they see you? They'll assume we're the bad guys. It's for safety, I said. There should be plenty of enemies around here. Transform only when it's really necessary, Dean said. She held the bottom of my right hand. I got Gabe. And we're pretty strong girls, right? I nodded, closing my hand. The golden light disappeared, and the tunnel darkened. Will we go with the people we'll save all the way? All the way where? We're not going to abandon. Like all the way to civilization or something. Until the police find us. Until we get rescued. That was usually the end of the movie, and the credits will roll. But for us, that'd be the start of the next set of headaches. I'm not sure. Dean looked at the ground, pondering our situation. Probably not all the way. We'll get checked for injuries. Medics might notice something wrong. Might? They'll definitely notice something's wrong. We look like this with 0 injuries. Given what we've been through, I wouldn't be surprised if we get tested for adumbry seeding. Here's what we do, we'll help survivors escape to the surface, Dean said. We'll make sure they're safe. We'll make sure the authorities are contacted. And we'll leave only once we see the police are coming. I would have been fine with just step 1 of her plan. Too bad we don't have a suppressor, I said. It will be easier if we get rescued along with everyone else. What do you mean? Where is this place? Are we still in Nevada? Or even in the US? What if we're in a different country? If we're overseas, it's going to be difficult returning home without passports and stuff. I hadn't thought of that, Dean said. People here speak English, so I hope that means we're still in America, at least. I hope so too. I raised a brow. Dean was tearing off the bottom of her shirt. Crop tops are the trend nowadays, but this doesn't seem like the right time to. I'm making a mask, silly. Dean tied the strip of cloth to cover her mouth. You could have asked for a piece of my jeans. I bent down to rip my pants. I felt Dean poke my lower back. What are you doing? There's blood. Were you wounded when I pulled? No. It's dry. This looks like a neat hole, not a tear. When did you get shot? I don't know, I truthfully answered. This brought Imani back to mind. I hadn't decided on what to do with her. Was she going to keep her mouth shut? Likely not. If she told Jub, they'd ask the supplier and know I didn't have an artificial core brain. I should rope in Dean and see what her suggestion would be. There was only one correct answer here. Must be when I was unconscious, I said. No one shot at me when I awoke because I immediately transformed to fight. When I got teleported here, I was already in Blanchette form. Who was with you when you woke up? Dean sternly asked, realizing the problem. Imani, Tesh, his wife or girlfriend or something. Other survivors too. Do they know you got shot? Yes, they do. I gasped as if I had realized the problem just now. Imani asked me how I felt when I woke up and was surprised when I wasn't in pain. I think she knows I'm not normal. Okay, that's a problem we'll have to deal with when we get back. Did Imani say anything else? Nothing. She didn't act like someone discovering an adumbry. That's why I only thought of Imani's weird reaction now. It's because she didn't think you're an adumbry. She thought you had an artificial core like me, Dean said, coming to the same conclusion I did. But she'll eventually know that's wrong, I said. We'll have to. Dean stopped talking. There was scratching nearby. I picked up Dean's phone and pointed it toward the weird noise. An eye. I said. Vanessa's familiar. I must remember I hadn't seen it before. It's that eye again. Dean exclaimed. You know what it is? The eye raised itself on its insect legs and swayed its body. A small parasite monster. I don't know, but it guided Pino and me when we got here. It's on our side. Or at least not an enemy. Looks creepy, I said. What is it doing? Signing we should follow. It did this last time too. The eye familiar scampered down the tunnel. Should we follow it then? I think so. Makeshift masks secured, we jogged after Vanessa's eye familiar. Turning around the corner, we ran into dead guys entangled with dead parasite monsters. This must be the fighting we heard earlier. Further ahead, there was one monster ripping a corpse with its tentacles and shoving body parts into its beak-like mouth. It tried to grab the passing eye familiar, but I caught its tentacles. More tendrils reached for me. Dean slammed them all down with a rock. Then I leaped over Dean, kicking the monster's head. Dean tossed the rock at me. I caught it and brought it down on the monster so hard it broke apart. The whole bit was wholly unplanned, but it turned out pretty cool. Gross. I examined my shirt, stifling the curses on the tip of my tongue. Slime got all over me. Dean pulled me. Let's go. We might lose the eye. Vanessa, sorry for scaring you to death, I thought while looking at her familiar, by trying to cause your death. Was she angry with me? What could she be thinking after what I did? There was a chance this eye thingy was leading us to a trap, though Dean's guardian angel would be our counter. I confirmed that Vanessa didn't betray me when I heard cries for help. Survivors. Under a sputtering light bulb, a group of people who had seen better days huddled at the corner. In front of them stood a tall, shirtless guy wielding a gun like a bat, warding away a couple of parasite monsters. He was one of Imani's friends. He looked like he should be at the back of the group instead of the front. Tall Ginger, I forgot his name, lost one of his augmented legs. He leaned on a hastily made crutch made of pipes, with his shirt padding the fork at the top. His gun ran out of bullets. Another of Imani's friends was in the middle of the room, fighting the bulk of the parasite monsters. He had an artificial core, displaying bursts of super strength and speed, vacuuming chunks of flesh into his hands. Someone with an artificial core. Let's call him Vacuum Hands. They're Imani's friends. Dean said. We should help them. Really? I thought we were going to take out Imani. I figured it was better just to let her friends die. But Dean had already joined the fray. Whatever. I picked up a sharp rock and charged the nearest tentacled weirdo. My limbless opponent screeched as it retreated. Behind it, I saw Dean sprint through the parasite monsters attacking Vacuum Hands. She avoided and parried their attacks. She didn't stay to fight any, instead rushing past them to Tall Ginger. A squat humanoid with long claws had pounced on shirtless Tall Ginger. Splashes of red. He screamed for help. Vacuum Guy shouted something but got enveloped by several monsters. The other survivors were useless, stuck to the walls, paralyzed with fear. They didn't raise a finger to help. Dean tackled the parasite monster attacking Tall Ginger. I couldn't see what happened next because a bastard with scythe blades blocked my view. I raised my arm to stop its slash. The edge bit an inch into my arm. Scria, my opponent squealed, its stumpy limb spraying black slime. I cut its other arm with its own blade. Thanks for this gift. Another swing and its head went flying. Of course, it wasn't dead yet. Parasite monsters were hardy weeds. To put them down for good, one had to kill the host and the gross slugs within. And I couldn't see where those were without Pinot's X-ray, life force, whatever vision. Headless and armless, the praying mantis bastard still stood. Tiny tentacles wiggled out its neck and severed arms. I don't have time for this, I grumbled, kicking its exoskeleton-covered torso. It went tumbling into more monsters, clearing a way for me. With my shiny and smelly, and slimy new weapons, I cut through the disgusting crowd to help Vacuum Hands. He had a peculiar codename related to Alice in Wonderland, but I couldn't recall it. Apparently, he and Tall Ginger, still alive and screaming somewhere I couldn't see, had been teleported here too. I hadn't noticed them when Dean and I, as Pinot, found the hostages imprisoned by the tea party in the heart of their base. I was too busy looking for Mom's white hair among the dozens of people. That and I didn't care about them. Vacuum Hands managed to surface from the monster pile. "Damn you all," he shouted, reaching for any part of his attackers he could grab. The hole in his palms sucked parasite monsters, tearing them into small chunks to forcibly fit them through the tiny opening. Flesh, bones, and even black slime went down the drain. It was like the worst pool drain accidents combined in one. Vacuum Hands stood his ground despite several monsters biting, stabbing, and clawing his body. I thought it was some suicidal tactic, though his power was neat. There were too many monsters, but then his injuries healed at a surprisingly rapid rate. A gaping wound from a slash stitched together the next second. It had something to do with his sucking thing. Imani must have explained it when she revealed herself to Dean and me, but much of what she said had left through my other ear. And that brought back the question of what to do with these two. If we let them reunite with Imani, they'd be additional headaches when we'd kill her. This place should be their tomb. Wow, that's a badass line. Snark. Snark, answer me, cried out Vacuum Hands. Are you okay? Snark. Right, that was Tall Ginger's name. Vacuum Hands should be more concerned with himself. Tentacles caught his arms and drew them to the sides, rendering his powers unusable and threatening to rip him apart. A squad of scaly gremlins clambered up his body and gnawed his shoulder and elbow joints. The parasite monsters seemed to have a few brain cells for strategy. Why can't we just leave them to die? I groaned before jumping into the monster mosh pit, my blades ready. Unfortunately, I had to go along with Dean's heroic antics. She probably couldn't handle the guilt of watching people die. Yet. She'd eventually come around, just like she did with the frat boys. Dean wouldn't let her poor Adumbry best friend get exposed, would she? Spiked tendrils wrapped around my waist and legs. A tingle of disgust ran up my spine. As the tendrils tightened, the spikes bit into my skin. Don't touch me. I went into a rampage. I swung my blades as hard as I could, not caring if the edge was angled the right way. Swords became blunt weapons as I hammered anything that moved. Soon, my weapons broke from too much whacking. I switched to using my fists and legs, remembering my lessons with Myra. Calm down. We're allies. Vacuum Hands shouted at me. He got free from the tentacles and was removing the little gits gnawing at his body. I was doing the ancient martial arts helicopter style, and my fists nearly connected with him. Your errand, correct? I touched my mouth to check if my mask had fallen off. We met at the tech fair, Vacuum Hands said. The gremlin he held disintegrated, its pieces disappearing into his hands. I remember, he looked in Dean's direction, then back to me. Your shirt. My shirt. I was covered with dirt and black goo. You're Imani's friend. I bet he recognized Dean. Anyone could recognize her body even if she got dunked in mud and assumed who I was. Good to see that you're fine now. I didn't know you had an artificial core. I didn't reply, punching the shell of another insect-like monster to fill the silence. I could pretend to be an augmented human, but he'd know the truth sooner or later. Or never, if he died here. Appreciate the assist, he said. I really do. You saved our toast asses. We're on the same team, I replied. Let's get Snark so we can escape. The survivors, 5 of them, were crawling at the far end of the room, taking advantage of our arrival to make their escape. They headed for a small tunnel partially blocked by a pillar that fell diagonally across it. I was surprised that they didn't wait for us. Were they seriously going on their own? Turning to the left corner on that side, Dean tended to tall ginger Snark, rather on the floor. She tore his shirt into strips and tied his wounds. Did she know how to make a tourniquet, tourniquet, or whatever was that stopping bleeding thing? Tourniquet. Vacuum Hands made his way to them. I followed him. His power was well suited for dealing with parasite monsters. Once vacuumed, they were gone for good. In contrast, the ones I tore or squished were putting themselves back together. Is Snark okay? I asked stupid question. But I wanted to appear caring to mask future betrayal. I even used Tall Ginger's codename to sound sincere. This will have to do until we get medical help. Vacuum Hands redid Dean's handiwork. Snark groaned in pain as Vacuum Hands tightened the wraps before knotting them secure. Sorry if I got it wrong, Boojum. Dean looked at her bloody hands. Boojum's the codename of Vacuum Hands. Such a funny sounding word. I just tied the strips of cloth around the wound, Dean continued. I don't know what to do to the wound on his chest. Don't worry, you did great, Boojum said, lying through his teeth. I stopped my eyes from rolling. For limbs, we tie above the wounds. For anywhere else, like the gas chest wound, we'll apply pressure. Can you do the pressure thing while moving? I looked over my shoulder. Some of the parasite monsters had stood up. They grabbed pieces of their friends with their tentacles and assimilated those into their bodies. If this was any other situation, we shouldn't move Snark. Boojum rummaged around his pockets and brought out a small pen. He jabbed Snark's neck with it. But you're right, we can't stay here. What was that? I asked. Adrenaline concoction. Helps with bleeding. A gift from the professor. Handy for normal people. Normal people. Dean scanned the room. The survivors. Where did they go? They were just through there. I pointed at the tunnel. Dunno why they were in such a hurry to leave. Boojum carried Snark in his arms and nudged his head to the exit. You girls go first. Girls? I thought with a smirk. Dean and I were stronger than this sucky asshole, but he had to be all protective while carrying his injured friend. This was one of the most predictable traits of men and the easiest to manipulate. I might goad Boojum into sacrificing himself for us, and then it was easy to accidentally finish off Snark without Dean suspecting a thing. We needed an enemy, a strong one, to force Boojum into becoming a macho hero. Dean crawled under the pillar barring the tunnel. Looks like it's safe. The other hostages aren't here. I followed in after her. Pass Snark to us, I told Boojum. Dean and I pulled Snark through the gap. He was unconscious but still breathing. Too bad. Boojum followed after. Block the way. Quick. Through the gaps, we saw the parasite monsters had merged into a blob of spikes resembling a gooey giant sea urchin. Boojum rained punches on the middle section of the pillar. I joined in, taking care not to punch harder than him even though I could. Cracks spread through the concrete surface. Excuse me. Coming through. Dean called from behind us. Boojum and I stepped aside as a huge rock flew and landed at the point where the pillar sagged. The post broke, and the part of the ceiling it held up fell. Just in time. The rolling sea urchin smashed against the rubble on the other side. "Get right on moving," Boojum said. He picked up his friend, who was turning pale. The sea urchin continued to slam against the blockage. Our group hurried down the passage while Dean called out for other people. "Where are you?" Dean shouted. "We're here to help." "Don't bother," Boojum said. "We'll find them eventually." "Why did they separate from us?" I asked. Boojum and Snark must have done something that made those people think it was better to risk the monsters roaming the tunnels. After several seconds of silence, punctuated by Snark's groans of pain, Boojum sighed. "Okay, I'll tell you. Do you know how my power works? Has Imani told you?" "Yeah, she did," I said. "And I saw it in action too." "You can suck." "Absorb," he curtly interjected. "Whatever. You can absorb like bodies and stuff to heal yourself. I suppose you can guess why those people are afraid to be near me." Dean gasped. "Did you absorb a person?" "A dead body," Boojum tersely clarified. Dean and I looked at each other. Boojum was behind us, so he couldn't see our expressions, but he could guess what we were thinking. "A man shot by Tea Party. I ran past him when the earthquake started. Both my legs got crushed by the falling ceiling." And he droned on and on. It sounded like he was rationalizing more to himself than telling us the story. I personally didn't care if he vacuumed his own mother to save himself. If I had his power, would I vacuum Mom? Maybe if she was dead. Anyway, that wasn't the point. Boojum was still talking. "It was by the Mother Core's grace that a dead body was there for me to." "Have you seen Pino?" Dean loudly interrupted Boojum. She gave me a conflicted stare, clearly uncomfortable with his ramblings. "Both of us got transported here, but we split up." "I haven't seen her," Boojum said. "I was inside a cell along with Snark and other people until the doors opened. It must have been Pino who did it with advanced robot hacking." "Robot hacking? If only I had that power." I thought Dean would present herself as their true savior, but instead, she asked, "Have you seen a tall, middle-aged woman with pure white hair?" She described Mom, including her clothes. Boojum hadn't seen anyone like her. Dean gave me an assuring smile. I nodded in return. I pictured Dean would bawl her eyes out when we met Mom. And I hoped Mom was safe wherever that creepy old gnome teleported her. If she ended up in danger, I would taxidermy that gnome and sell him as a garden ornament. Oh, and I'd kill Vanessa again. And all her familiars too. Though we passed a few side tunnels, they had collapsed, leaving only one path. There were also traces of blood on the floor. The hostages were somewhere ahead of us. We hadn't caught up to them because Boojum had to take it slow, carrying his friend. Those people should die too, I thought. Snark was too recognizable, 2 August legs, tall, red hair. Boojum, not so much, he was covered with monster grime from all the fighting. Dean and I had our masks on. And I doubted the surviving hostages got a good look at us. Once the police rescued them, they'd be able to identify Snark. Countercheck him with security cam footage at the tech fair or something. Tracking Snark would lead to Imani and Imani to me. The list of people I had to kill was lengthening. Damn it. This would have been easy if Dean wasn't around. I could force her hand, the same as I did when we killed the frat boys. Time to draw the possessed by an Adumbry card, I guess. There's some banging. Dean, in the lead, slowed down. Enemy? Boojum said. I don't think so, Dean said. My power would have warned us. Quite a helpful ability. It's them, I said. They could be in danger, Boojum said. Pick up the pace, girls. This girl will kill you later, I thought. Echoes of banging grew louder as we reached the end of the tunnel. We entered a large room with crates and boxes stacked up to its 2-story high rocky ceiling. A storage room of sorts. Past the corridor of containers, we came to a wide open area and saw how big the place truly was, with the ceiling extending higher by a dozen more feet as we neared the center of the cave. A wide circular shaft, covered by glass on one side, stood in the middle, punching up the rocks, presumably into the world above an elevator. Our ticket out of here. The 5 people who ditched Boojum and Snark were gathered around the elevator door. One of them, a burly man, hammered the gears at the sides with a metal pipe. Besides us, no one was here. Neither the parasite monsters nor the quakes damaged this place. Also, the tea party was nowhere to be seen. They must have left some other way. 3 other tunnels led out of the cavern. On the other side of the elevator shaft was a boxy structure built next to the cave wall. It had doors and glass windows, probably for overseeing operations. Through the windows, I spotted desks and computers. Must be an office. Judging by the forklift and carts, this might be a cargo distribution center or something like that. Boojum gently settled Snark on the floor. His friend was paler than I was, which was saying something. Boojum's shirt was red with blood, and so were Snark's bandages. Snark, buddy will be out soon. Boojum's voice cracked. He closed his eyes for a couple of seconds, placing his hands on Snark's unmoving chest. He bent down, probably to check for signs of breathing, but stopped and stood back up. Opening his eyes, Boojum looked at us, face full of determination. Stay here with him. I don't want to spook the people over there any further. He tilted his head towards the survivors who had noticed us. I'm going to tell you when it's okay to come help. We're all going to get out of here. I promise. Boojum jogged to the elevator shaft. Shouting erupted, the survivors wary of him. I wanted to try to listen in, but Dean grabbed my arm. Erend, prepare for a fight, she said. Did your guardian angel say something? I asked. Gabe told me you should summon your mask, the wolf mask, the red thing. I should transform. I looked around for signs of danger while summoning Blanchette's mask. What's going to come? No, don't wear it yet, Dean said. Gabe didn't say anything else. Huh? Why not? I thought. I don't know. Dean also turned left and right. Just wait for me to tell you when to put it on. Okay. I trust you. Damn it. I really hated when I was out of the loop about something. Dean's guardian angel better have a good reason for this. And we still hadn't seen our enemies. Look. Dean said. She pointed at a crate. No. At what was on top of the box. Vanessa's eye familiar. I forgot about this little guy when we ran into Boojum's group. It must have followed us all the way here. And what was it doing? It bobbed up and down on its legs. Then it tapped its front legs on the crate. A little dance of some sort. It's telling us to get down, Dean said. Down. A familiar ringing reverberated in the cavern. Teleportation. Dean dove on top of me and pulled me to the ground. Stay down. One of the office doors had changed into a different one. It swung open and out charged several men with guns. They opened fire at the people tinkering with the elevator. No. Dean cried. Bullets ripped through squishy normal humans. Boojum rushed to shield them with his body. Shots thudded on his back. He grabbed the nearest person on the floor, a lady in a torn business suit and slacks, and used his powers to heal himself. It must have tormented him to absorb her, even if she was dying, so he could save the rest. But was there a rest to save? 3 others lay unmoving in their own blood, twitching when smacked by bullets. The last person managed to crawl behind the elevator shaft, but he was bleeding heavily. I tackled Dean as she ran to them. I locked my left arm around her hips and heaved her over my shoulder. I held Blanchette's mask with my right hand. Should I wear this? No. Errand, let me go. I ran with Dean flailing like a caught fish. I'm saving you. Tea Party bastards opened fire at us. Wood splinters and plastic shards scattered as boxes exploded. I managed to reach sturdier containers. Metal ones, probably. Bullets pinged off our hiding spot for a few seconds, then the gunfire stopped. I raised my red mask to my face, but Dean shouted, "Don't." "Why not?" "We're in." Gabe said not yet. Dean wriggled free of my hold. Her guardian angel must have counted on me to save her stupid heroic ass. Grabbing Dean and running while getting shot was pretty cool and heroic. It made me forget my hatred of physical contact. Our monster gore coating acted as insulation. "Where's Snark?" Dean hissed. "Fuge cake. I got you and..." "You left him?" Her voice rose. A flicker of anger in her eyes. Before I could explain further, she brushed past me and headed to the corner of the metal containers. "We should find another way out." I wanted to add that everyone we left behind was dead anyway. Maybe not Boojum, but the Tea Party would take care of him soon. He'd be the distraction for our escape. Dean ignored me. "Follow me. We're showing ourselves. Gabe says so. Keep your mask in front of you." "Why can't I wear?" I stopped mid-sentence. "Here you are," boomed an unfamiliar gruff voice. I froze. Dean dragged me along. I badly wanted to wear the mask if we were to meet the enemy, but Dean tightly held onto my right wrist, my red mask still in my hand. Trust in Gabe, I guess. Dean and I left the cover of the large metal containers and trudged through destroyed wooden crates. Snark's corpse was bloodier than before. Dean was ugly if this guy was still alive. Turning to the elevator, I spotted Boojum behind its crisscrossing metal structure. He snacked on a body with his sucky power. Further on, more than a dozen people stood outside the teleporting door of the squad office. A couple more walked out the door before it swung shut and reverted to its original form like the other doors in the row. Snark. Dean released my hand and left me. "Hold your fire," commanded the head of the pack of assholes. His minions lowered their guns trained at Dean. The one who spoke was an imposingly huge man with a pronounced underbite, highlighted more by his chiseled cleft chin. The upper half of his bald head was machine bionic eyes, metal plating, blinking lines, all sorts of stuff. He had two long horns, growing from a broad base out the metal sides of his head, thinning to a point as they curved up. The horns brought up images of rabbit ears to mind such garish and out-of-place augs to have. They might not be mechanical but somewhat organic parts of his body. Adumbri mutations. Weird that this guy didn't take the chemicals or whatever stuff the fake Adumbri used to look like ordinary people. Rabbit Ears had his hands on his hips, chest puffed while flanked by two heavily augmented men larger than him. The two bouncers had the same ugly face, identical twins, right down to their bio-augmentronics. Obviously, Rabbit Ears was the boss of the Tea Party. I was sure Imani mentioned his name, but Rabbit Ears he shall be until I recalled it. Behind the three beefy men were a couple of recognizable faces, Magenta Cannon and Vanessa, and two unfamiliar to me. Magenta Cannon and Vanessa were a mess, skin and singed clothes powdered by soot as if they crawled through a chimney. They must have had a fun escape through the pipes when the explosions happened. A string bean of a guy stood right of Vanessa. He had "pretentious" written all over his face. I might be wrong about his actual personality, but his all-white outfit, including white shoes and gloves, reinforced my assessment. Next to Magenta Cannon was a woman wearing a tight button-up shirt with the upper half buttons popped, revealing chrome-plated cleavage. Her slender hands and bare feet were also chrome. The rest of the group were armed men with balaclava masks and goggles covering their whole heads. Finley's clay dummies. I bet Finley was hiding among them. I wasn't confident I could take on all of these butt wads as Blanchette. And I was 100% positive I'd lose if I didn't transform. I might not have the chance if I didn't do it now. But my pain in the butt best friend was busy grieving over a dead body. A thing not worth crying over. Was her guardian angel telling her to tell me to transform? You monsters! Dean shouted, cradling Snark's dead body. Are you the famous Red Hood of La Esperanza? Rabbit Ears asked Dean. Or is she that woman over there? He pointed at me. If we were in a movie, this would be the perfect moment to transform into Blanchette. Cinematic timing with rising battle music. But, no. I was staying as my cute self for some reason only known to the guardian angel. Look at what the small girl's holding, said White Beanpole. He was begging to get killed by calling me that. A red mask. Same one we've seen in the files, said Silver Titties. I probably should make a better nickname for her. But a different woman was wearing it then, she added. That's Red Hood. That's her real body. It was Finley's voice, but I couldn't tell which of the masked dummies was him. You should stop her from transforming. Vanessa piped up from the back of the group. Our eyes met. She intently looked at me. A signal of betrayal, or was she telling me something else? Use it. Stop her abilities. Right you are. Perfect time to test this. Rabbit Ears ripped his shirt open to reveal a glowing boxy machine attached to his bare chest. A bluish brainy thing pulsed on the face of the device like his heart transferred outside his body. All the masked men pointed their guns at me. Rabbit Ears stomped his foot. The ground rippled beneath him like a disturbed puddle as the earth quaked. The Bouncer twins kept their balance while the others teetered. The shoots of the clay soldiers went wild. Guests should remain quiet. Rabbit Ears yelled. Errand, wear it. Dean cried out. I looked down at myself. I was back to my original body, my skin and clothes covered in dirt and dried monster blood. Did someone shoot me with a suppressor? No. Closing my fist, I felt my super strength present. I dug my fingernails into my palm, breaking the skin. The cuts rapidly faded. Rabbit Ears roared in laughter. A successful test. Worth every penny. All but one of the masked men had disappeared, their guns cluttering the ground. Second time this shit happened. In frustration, the remaining masked man removed his goggles and threw them to the floor. Finley's ability got cancelled too. This is Oren's power, was my first reaction. But I thought I had killed that asshole. Either Vanessa was lying, or the freaky box on Rabbit Ears' chest had something to do with it. The bluish clump of veins brought back images of Oren's sorry state when a parasitic slug merged with his head to boost his powers. I rushed to reunite with Dean. Boojum beckoned for us to join his hiding place. I'm sorry, Snark, Dean mumbled, letting his body drop to the ground as she stood up. But she didn't budge, pulling me to stop. Errand, let's stay here. What are you? Gabe's last words before disappearing. She seemed too calm, given she had just lost her guardian angel. I thought she'd be freaking out experiencing Oren's power for the first time. Just stand here? I asked. Yes. Trust in Gabe. I sighed and followed her. Time to die, I sarcastically thought. In my peripheral vision, Boojum waved at us two stupid girls to hide. If Dean's guardian angel foresaw this, there was a reason for everything. The problem was that we didn't have Gabe with us anymore. How could we be sure we wouldn't go off-script past 10 minutes into the future? An honor to behold Red Hood in the flesh, declared Rabbit Ears. Even if only for a second. None of our enemies picked up the guns on the floor. They didn't need to. Like Magenta Cannon, the augmented tea party people should have plenty of hidden weapons. However, no one dared attack without Rabbit Ear's permission. Finley surely wanted to shoot me but didn't want to cross the tea party boss again. I'm honored to be graced by the presence of such a powerful true Adumbry. Rabbit Ears bowed. I half expected his horns to flop down like ears. I've seen your feats and know the headaches you've caused Mark and Big Marcy. And for that, I thank you for a job well done. We might work together now, but we are rivals no less. His huge belly laugh echoed in the cavern. Oh, he's the chatty type. Thank you, jackasses who couldn't help but make shitty speeches. Though I wasn't such a type, I imagine many people find it enjoyable. It did feel nice when my scheme succeeded, but I didn't value others enough to care about their reactions. For me, gloating was a waste of time. But what a rude guest you turned out to be, Rabbit Ears continued. Why did you have to destroy the precious base we built with sweat, blood, and money? Mostly money. Money that we acquired by shedding the blood of others. I got the gist of the guardian angel's plan. If we ran, Rabbit Ears would have immediately ordered us killed, like a dog chasing out of instinct. It was 3 versus 8. Not good odds. By drawing this out while he monologued, we might find an opening. Or, we could have run far away already. Bottom line, I still didn't understand what the guardian angel was up to. I also couldn't fathom the point of not immediately transforming into Blanchette. Answer me, Red Hood. Rabbit Ears demanded. Errand, Dean said in a low voice. I think you. I know, I whispered back. Be brave. I'm right behind you. I stopped puking at Dean's bullshit and faced my enemies as confidently as possible with my crawled out of the sewer getup. I removed my mask made from strips of my jeans. A certain grandeur and mysticism surrounded a true Adumbry from the eyes of the fake that they'd, unconsciously or not, put me on a pedestal. Not only that, I did have quite the resume as Blanchette. I should capitalize on that fearsome impression. The name's Errand Hartwell, I said, relaxing my muscles and steadying my breathing. I should show no fear these augmented bastards with scanners in their bionic eyes would pick up if I were only pretending. They'd find it unsettling if I was calm while Dean and Boojum were tensed, maybe even afraid. And it was easy to calm myself. After the initial shock of the ambush, I had pretty much adjusted to the situation. In a way, I was having fun, the chill sort of fun. Life and death struggles were par for the course after I became an Adumbry. This was my natural habitat. To be accurate, that's the name of this body I inhabit, I clarified. Dean inhaled sharply behind me. Couldn't she tell I was acting? This made me more interesting enough not to get immediately killed. Such a nice girl, this Errand Hartwell. And pretty. And cute. And caring. No, not that one. What is your real name? Rabbit Ears asked, obviously hooked by my introduction. He pointed at me, then at his head. The you inside of that girl. I don't have any, I said. I've only recently awakened. However, people have been calling me Red Hood while I'm out eating. You can call me by either name. Well then, Red Hood, how about you tell me why you decided to turn this place into a restaurant? You have eaten so many of my people and caused much destruction. Pray tell, Adumbry, what brings you here? Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to answer that question. I placed my hands on my hips to mimic him. I thought it was rhetorical. And you've said it yourself, I'm an Adumbry. There's no point asking me about my motives. You're right, Rabbit Ears nodded. That was a dumb question from me. Vanessa peeked through the gap between the broad arms of Rabbit Ears and Bouncer Twin 2. She glared at me. Another possibility, what if she planned for this right from the start? But that couldn't be, I decided to come here with my real body. Also, she should have alerted the whole place to prepare when I came here as Blanchette. Rabbit Ears paced with his hands still on his hips. A true Adumbry. An Adumbrey in control of the body, unlike Euphonia and Legba. Comparable to an animal blindly following its instincts to consume. Or perhaps a force of nature is a more apt description. While Rabbit Ears spouted shit, Vanessa mouthed a message to me, warily looking at the others beside her. Yes, Adumbrey are a force of nature, Rabbit Ears continued. Force majeure, business contract terminology. You may not think so from my appearance, but I was a prominent businessman before I became infamous. Vanessa tilted her head while continuing to point. She stopped when Magenta Cannon glanced at her. Then I realized she wasn't pointing at White Beanpole but at the man further left, Finley. He couldn't use his powers with the blue machine active. Vanessa had prodded Rabbit Ears to use the blue machine. Was she telling me to kill Finley? My eyes focused on the blue box on Rabbit Ears' chest as his monologue dragged on. I recall a hurricane leveling my beachside mansion in Florida, he said. There was no point getting angry at the weather. I suppose it's the same as an Adumbrey strolling in our base, looking to scourge some morsel of human flesh. A light bulb lit up in my head. A fight would have erupted immediately if I was already in my Blanchette form. The blue machine would catch me off guard, and the tea party would kill me when I reverted to my lovable errand self. Although I won't get angry at a hurricane or a hungry Adumbrey, Rabbit Ears said, I won't simply turn a blind eye to you, Ms. Red Hood, standing right in front of me. Are you going to kill me then? I smiled and matched his pacing but in the opposite direction. As he walked to my right, closer to the elevator shaft, I walked left. Dean's guardian angel wanted us to stay, that meant we could win. Not just could. We will win. It would have told us to run if we had lost in its future vision. But I should act soon. Any victory, or the start of it, should happen within 10 minutes of the guardian angel's last words to Dean. Kill you? That is a possibility, Rabbit Ears said. Though I'd rather avoid such a harsh outcome. No one profits from further fighting. What's the hold-up? Finley screeched, not able to hold his anger any longer. Kill her already. Silence. Rabbit Ears stomped as he roared in Finley's direction. There were no more quakes or wiggly floor waves, but his foot cracked the ground. Finley shrunk. Be respectful while I have a conversation with others. And that includes you. Rabbit Ears pointed at the elevator. Only now did I notice that Boojum was climbing up the shaft's frame, cautious to remain in the cover of the wide metal beams. Was this dick just leaving us? I had assumed he was all heroic like Dean. Maybe he considered us dead and decided to escape on his own. Get him. Rabbit Ears said. I'm not done talking to Red Hood here. He's next. I have some words for him, especially after our previous meeting. Bouncer Twin 1 and Silver Cleavage jogged to the elevator shaft. Rabbit Ears turned to me. Last time, that brat took a chunk off me. I should attack now. But who do I go for? Best attack elsewhere and split our enemy into manageable chunks. Rush straight at Rabbit Ears? Also too obvious. Someone else, someone the Tea Party wouldn't instinctively react to protect. Why are you working with? Rabbit Ears began to say. I charged toward Finley. When I fought Orin, I ignored Myra's lesson to keep my distance against an Adumbrey. I was confident I could pulverize that pompous weakling without breaking a sweat. Finley and another Adumbrey even joined the fight, but all they could manage was flee with a dying Orin. My super strength far surpassed theirs. I knew it before the fight began. In contrast, I was now rushing at several Adumbrey and augmented people. But I didn't hesitate. I wasn't going off the script of the guardian angel. This is the script. Bullets nibbled my raised arms, protecting my face. No pain, just itchiness. I didn't slow down. Finley hesitantly turned, probably thinking of bolting for a split second. But he must have realized he couldn't outrun me. Instead, he raised the gun like a club. Help! I headbutt Finley in the stomach before he could swing his gun. Not caring about the shouting that erupted, I held Finley's midsection, my head still compressing his innards, and continued running. I used him as a battering ram to break through the drywall of the office building behind him. Past chairs, tables, and cabinets, we plowed through all of them. Let go. Finley brought his elbow down on my back. You yerg. I smashed him against the bare walls of the cavern on the opposite side of the building. He would have bounced off if I wasn't holding him. He coughed blood on my shirt. I released him. Finley dropped. His knees touched the ground. His stupid, disoriented face was level with my chest. The head. The weakness of the adumbri. Those with heads, anyway. I didn't let Finley fall to the floor. My fist landed squarely on his nose. His head banged back against the rock. My next punch collapsed his cheek into his mouth. I wailed away without a restraint, zoning out everything. Knuckles crunched bones and teeth and flattened flesh. Copious amounts of blood spurted as if I was pressing an orange with each punch. I blinked to clear my eyes as Finley's blood bathed my face. I didn't let up, punching so fast that individual thuds flowed into a drumroll. No more teleporting bullshit from you. My fingers hurt. The skin on my knuckles burned. If my strike angled wrong, my wrist suffered. The impact of each hit raced up my arms and rocked my body. I punched so hard I felt the craggy wall through minced flesh. Flying chunks of meat became flying rocks. And was that an arm that twirled away? Soon, all I could see was red. White noise filled my hearing. I didn't stop punching, nearly forgetting what I was supposed to do. Great pain suddenly overcame me. My muscles uncontrollably seized. I had experienced this before. Electrocution. I gritted my teeth, refusing to scream. I resisted my muscles contracting. The pain snapped me out of my fixation. I finally processed what was in front of me. The wall was a cross-section of a wasp's nest. Blood painted the collection of craters. Where did Finley go? A body was lying next to my feet. Everything above the stomach was gone as if a shark chomped it off. The intensity of the shocks increased. Convulsions rocked my body like goosebumps on steroids. I could barely focus my thoughts. With great effort, I willed my legs to kick off. I dove under a nearby table. Instant relief. But I didn't have time to feel relieved. I crawled across the white tiles, pushing aside chairs and partitions. Gunfire followed. Wood splinters sprinkled my hair. I was probably also hit, I wasn't sure. Reaching an open spot between two rows of cubicles, I pushed off the floor and ran. Something broad came up in my peripheral vision. At first, I stupidly thought the wall rushed at me, but it was a cabinet pushed by someone behind it. The cabinet sandwiched me against the cavern wall. Books and folders cascaded down on me. A fist burst out of the wood and hit my face. I caught the arm before it could retreat through the cabinet. My hand clasped around his wrist tight like a manacle. White sleeves. Gauging the strength exerted in pulling away, White Beanpole must be an adumbry my next victim. I was stronger than him, but he somehow slipped from my grasp. I should be faster, but I couldn't catch him again. He rained kicks on my body with fancy martial arts, keeping me at a distance with his long legs. I was like a kid getting toyed with. Glints of metal. The skin on my arms stung. Blades had emerged from White Beanpole's sleeves and the ends of his shiny white shoes. The swords flashed, I couldn't follow them. They cut my clothes and messily whipping hair but could only inflict shallow wounds on my body. This is for Renace. White Beanpole snapped his leg at me, slicing my eye. Red filled my vision, but I could still see. My wounds rapidly healed. I didn't bother evading in my mad attempt to grab White Beanpole. This asshole was wasting my time. Get out of the way. Magenta Cannon yelled. He stood several feet to my right, training a cannon arm on us. I can't get a clear what. I charged Magenta Cannon instead of sticking to White Beanpole for safety. I picked up a foldable steel chair as my shield. Magenta Cannon roared a curse as he fired. I staggered but didn't fall. Another shot, and my knees buckled. Searing pain radiated from my sternum. I could smell my burnt flesh. I didn't want to check myself. This piece of shit. I threw the smoldering halves of the thin metal chair at Magenta Cannon like frisbees before he could fire again. Ugh. You'll pay. Magenta Cannon didn't finish saying what I'll pay because I stomped him to the ground. Black Spade, shouted White Beanpole. Did he mean Magenta Cannon? Who cared about the real name of a man about to die? It was White Beanpole's fault, not allowing me to kill him, that made me go for his friend instead. I held both sides of Magenta Spade's head and raised him face front to White Beanpole. The Adumbri pulled back his bladed kick that was about to slice Black Cannon. Put him down, White Beanpole began to say, and will allow you. I squeezed the head of Black Magenta between my palms. Magenta Cannon didn't have any metal bits in his head. After a small effort collapsing his skull, it was like squeezing a wet sponge. I closed my eyes and turned away as blood splattered me. Surprisingly easy how humans could die. Black Spade. White Beanpole shrieked hoarse. He took advantage of my momentary blindness and drove his blade straight at my face just as I dropped his friend's pancake head. The blade penetrated my left cheek, entering my mouth. It was a grating feeling as it scraped my teeth. I bit down on the edge. White Beanpole gasped when he couldn't yank it free. I grabbed his arm, my fingers digging into his flesh. This time, I wasn't letting go. He yelped as I crushed his forearm bones. I stuck close so he couldn't use his stupid shoe blades. White Beanpole raised his other arm. There was a flash and a fountain of blood. I blinked, wondering what had happened. White Beanpole fled out of the wrecked office. I stared at the severed forearm I held, the white fabric covering it partially covered by blood. 2 down. 5 to go. Maybe 6 if Vanessa wanted a rematch. I kicked down a door to exit the office. That was one less teleporting gateway bullshit for them to use. Another battle raged by the elevator shaft. Boojum and Dean weaved through the steel frame like monkeys while Silver Titties and a bouncer twin I couldn't tell if he was 1 or 2 pursued them with blades wrapped in blue lighting. I vaguely remember a bid agent wielding them during the raid at Eve. Another bouncer twin stayed on the ground, firing at Boojum and Dean. My eyes passed by Vanessa, standing uselessly away from everyone else. Good news for me before landing on a very angry Rabbit Ears. He glowered, head slightly bowed as if he planned to skewer me with his horns. His metal jaw jutted further than before if that was possible. 3 of you are no match for a little girl. Rabbit Ears spat at White Beanpole by his side. His subordinate didn't reply. White Beanpole was busy tying a tourniquet or tourniquet whatever above the stump of his arm, biting down one end of a strip of white cloth as he tightened the knot. His regeneration wasn't as fast as mine. Do I have to do everything here? Rabbit Ears grabbed the scruff of White Beanpole's clothes and threw him back. Make yourself useful and help the twins capture those rats climbing up. I'll handle this. White Beanpole picked himself up and ran to the elevator shaft. Rabbit Ears beckoned at me with a finger as if I was a dog. Red Hood, come at me. You'll find I'm more than a match for you. He tapped the device on his chest, the blue brain thingy pulsing incessantly. Since we both can't use our abilities with this turned on, I swear upon my honor, the little I have of it, that I won't utilize my bio-augmentronics in our fight. Let this be a contest of strength. 1-on-1 against the enemy boss. This was the climax of the movie. I could see Rabbit Ears' intent save his subordinates while proving himself superior to a true Adumbri. His horns told me that he didn't want to stay human. It must irk his huge ego that, as strong and heavily augmented as he might be, he was just a fake. Rabbit ears through his metal fists. They whistled as they swooshed over my ducked head. Being short had its advantages. Gusts of wind followed his punches. They'd undoubtedly hurt if they connected. I bobbed as I ran around him. He spun while trying to hit me. I eyed the machine on his chest. Too risky. If I went for it, he'd catch me. Should I even destroy it? I needed to put on my mask, get hurt, and eat before my Blanchette power could start snowballing. 2 enemy Adumbry, rabbit ears and white beanpole. I wasn't sure if silver titties was one too. The situation might flip if they had overpowered bullshit powers. I focused on evading, not bothering to counterattack. Rabbit ears roared in frustration. It must have looked like I was toying with him. And that was indeed what I was doing. He brought clasped hands down on me like a sledgehammer. I rolled left. Shards of concrete scattered as his fists dug a crater where I had stood. I was beside him, his head lowered to a foot above mine. Rabbit ears had a raised brow, confused about something. Was there dirt on my nose? What was the expression I had on? I didn't think further, hastily uppercutting his jaw as the non-mechanical part of his face twisted in a fury. I hit him before he could stand straight. The metal crumpled, his head thrown back. But I couldn't budge him any more than that. I didn't punch hard enough. His weird face threw me off. That hurts. Rabbit ears swung his arm and caught my stomach, sending me flying in the direction of the elevator shaft. I clawed the ground as I slammed down to stop myself from rolling. A metallic taste filled my mouth. Pain shot up in my midsection like the monthly cramps girls know and love, but situated a bit higher. I looked down at my body. The lower half of my shirt was burned away, its frayed fringes had melted and stuck to my skin. There were no holes or wounds on my skin, just an angry reddishness from Rabbit Ear's strike. Though that was fading, along with the pain. So that's why it feels so airy, I mumbled. Joining the bare midriff trend, I guess. Red Hood, do you feel pain? Rabbit Ears balled his massive fists and shook them at me. Come. Don't tell me that, oi. Where are you going? I went for the bouncer twin. Let's assign him the number 2 standing at the base of the elevator shaft. People usually complained about movie fight scenes where a bunch of bad guys took turns attacking the protagonist instead of going in all at once. But what about the opposite? Ignore the big bad boss and take down his henchmen one by one. Vanessa? What was she doing? Behind you. Bouncer Twin 1 spotted me from his vantage point and warned his brother below. A weapon popped out of Twin 1's back and swiveled to point down at me. I zigzagged. Balls of electricity burst in my path. The static made my hair stand. A dozen feet away from Bouncer Twin 2. He turned around and strafed my direction with deafening gunfire. Ignore the pain. I was so close to Twin 2. I bent low as he made another pass with the roaring guns attached to his wrists. With each step, I dug the balls off my feet into the ground so I wouldn't get pushed back. My powerful muscles coiled and ready, I kicked off the floor and dove at Bouncer Twin 2. A flash of blue light. Electricity coursed through my body. Twin 2 grabbed both my arms, his metallic hands so large they enclosed my forearms whole and dangled me in front of him like clothes on a line. Antennas had sprouted out of his shoulders, sending tendrils of lightning to envelope us both. It was out of a mad scientist's laboratory. Somehow, Bouncer Twin 2 wasn't affected by it. You Adumbry are nothing special, he scoffed, his earthy voice drowned by crackles of electricity and the explosions of battle above us. He shook me as if I was a rowdy kitten. Crush his head. Don't mind the pain. Force your muscles to listen. Crush his head. I was on autopilot, desperate to carry out my single goal. Fighting spasming muscles, I contracted my abs and swung my lower body up. I caught his head with my legs. Bouncer Twin 2, with technology, we can level the what are you? I squeezed his head between my legs. Stop that. He tried pulling me away by my arms, but I didn't let go of his head. His bionic eyeballs bulged out of their sockets. He cried blue tears, some sort of chemical, followed by blood. Sparks danced on his metallic bits as they got warped. I felt heat scorching my thighs. Motherfucker. Bouncer Twin 2 let go of my arms and tried prying my legs off. I hung from his head, my legs a closing vice giving him an agonizing death. An upside-down rabbit ears was coming, screaming about fighting him like a man. His augmented arms sprouted wicked spikes, electricity dancing on the pointy ends. I raised my upper body abs and cardio day and stabbed Twin 2's left eye with straightened fingers. This was my favorite move. Twin 2 wobbled as he screamed. I punched his open eye socket, burrowing my fist deep into his deformed head. He fell on his back with a loud crash. I scrambled out of the way just as rabbit ears slammed the ground where I had been. Flying pieces of Bouncer Twin 2 accented the waves of electricity spreading out of rabbit ears' attack. One more down.